All right. You ready to go, Lori?
Yes.
All right. We're going to call this meeting to order of the Board of Supervisors for May 8th. Will you please do the roll call?
Yes. Supervisor Zaragoza.
Here.
Supervisor Long.
Here.
Supervisor Bennett.
Here.
Supervisor Parks. Supervisor Foy.
Here. And Supervisor Parks will be here pretty soon. And Rose, will you do the pledge for us, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We have the minutes of our May 1st board meeting. Do we have any comments, questions, or a motion? We have a motion. We have a second. Please vote. Thank you. And Mr. Powers, agenda review.
Thank you, Chair Foy. Item 21, Public Works Watershed Protection District. Approval of the plans and specifications, including addendum number 1 for the Fresno Canyon diversion located in the community of Casitas Springs. Revised Exhibit 3 has been submitted. Item 31, CEO's Office Public Hearing regarding adoption of the 2018-21 Memorandum of Agreement with Ventura County Deputy Sheriff's Association. A board letter, Exhibits 1 and 2 have been submitted. Item 32, CEO's Office receive and file fiscal year 2018-19 department budget presentations for the Departments of Airports, Public Defender, and Resource Management Agency. PowerPoint presentations from each have been submitted. And there's an addendum agenda. Items 41, closed session conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, County of Santa Clara versus Atlantic Richfield Company. And item 42, closed session conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, inquiry by the California State Bar of California. And that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything on our agenda? No? I like it. It's nice and quick, short, not much changes. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Please vote. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our moment of inspiration. I'm very excited to have the mayor of Port Hueneme here, Ms. Knopps. Thank you for coming to see us. I know it's a special time for you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Foy, members of the Board of Supervisors. Good morning, and good morning, county staff. I'm Sylvia Munoz-Schnapp, mayor of the city of Port Hueneme, and this year Port Hueneme is celebrating our 70th anniversary. It wasn't to say that we started as a township many years ago, and when Ventura County broke away from Santa Barbara County, we were one of the 3 townships that was established, and we were represented in this area by Thomas Bard, who lived in Hueneme. So we have a great history of not only starting and working alongside Santa Barbara County, but also County of Ventura. And I'm here today to present a tree that was this group of trees was part of our Arbor Day celebration as we celebrate our 70th anniversary, but also too knowing that you here at the County of Ventura actually had to deal with the Thomas Fire, as well as the effects after that. And it is our hope that this starts the restoration period. It's a gift from the city of Port Hueneme to the county. And it represents then that we're all in this together, no matter where we live.
Come down.
We stand alongside everyone. And if I could say a prayer for all of you, because this is, these are different times. We may not have a guidebook, and if we have a guidebook, sometimes we have to make changes to it, just depending on the situation and all. So if you'd bow your heads. So thank you, Heavenly Father, for this day today, this beautiful day in May. I thank you, Lord, for not only the restoration and recovery that you have instilled in the hearts of many here, but what you're going to do in Ventura County. And I ask that you bless each and every one of our Board of Supervisors Supervisor Zaragoza, Supervisor Long, Supervisor Foy, Supervisor Bennett, and Supervisor Parks. And bless all the staff, including Michael Powers. Bless each and every one of their staff people as they do the right thing, as they're put in these situations, Lord, that you will guide them into the path that we would have to restore all of Ventura County and our communities. We thank you, Lord. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Appreciate that prayer.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for the tree. That's a special.
Thank you so much. Now that you blessed me, maybe get rid of my cold, my head cold.
You have a cold?
Yes.
Absolutely. I'll pray for you.
Thank you.
Well, Sylvia, also, I just want to say thank you so much. Your town is celebrating 70 years, and I know it's going to be a year-round celebration, and you have so many good things to go. So if people want to be a part of the Port Hueneme celebration, where would they go to find out information?
They can contact the city manager's office, and we'll have celebrations throughout the year. So there'll be different events to attend.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
But Mr. Chair, I just want to share something else. You know, I've worked for the city of Oxnard for years and years and years, and also as a council member, and now as a supervisor. We've always had a good relationship with the city of Hueneme. You've done a lot of good things for the county, and thank you for being here today, and thank you for that.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for serving too.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, so let's move on to our consent items. Anybody have any comments, questions on our consent? No? So
I
we-
would request
Request?
that the record show that I will not be voting for 20 and 22, but I will
28?
support 20 and 22.
20 and 22, do you want to pull them separately and
No,
vote?
well, if you want to, or the record can just show a no vote on those two for me.
Okay.
Mr.
Mr. Kaylee, we're good with that? Okay, so did you get that, the
Mr.
record? All right.
On 24, I just want to thank the treasurer, tax collector, our judge for doing a good job. He's back there. And
He's gonna start dancing.
I belong to the committee now. I just want to thank you, Your Honor, for the good job and your staff. On item 24.
Along with it, 12, I think the family justice system is going to be a really great resource for our community, and I'm looking forward to seeing it advance. So appreciate being brought to our consent item.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and I'm sure they all understand what we're doing here, so that's great. Thank you. Rose is shaking her head. I hope so. We may know, but Lori does. That's Lori's. She's good. All right, so we have a public comment time. Do we have any comments cards today? We do? And Monica Gray. Where's Monica? There she is. All right. Come down and see us. Is she our only card? Yeah, okay. But now I can. All right. 3 minutes, Monica. Thanks.
Good morning. What a greeting. It's almost like being on The Price is Right, only without money or prizes. Nice to see you all. I'm coming before you today to ask how I can help. How can I be of service to Ventura County? As someone who is a mom, a lifetime resident of Ventura County, I'm always checking out the agendas, reading about what's going on in our county, and trying to find ways that I can be helpful. Because, still looking for a job, going to school. I'm almost done with my certificate at Ventura College. But I have started initiating a lot of records requests in an attempt to figure out where I've gone wrong. Because as I engage with various programs within the county, like the Job and Career Services, or even like Children and Family Services, trying to access resources can be a little difficult. Sometimes when you hit a website looking for a resource, it's a dead link. I've hit a lot of dead ends when I'm asking for help, and so when I'm asking for those records, I'm just trying to see where I guess I could improve my method or system for approaching these agencies and asking for the help or resources I need. As someone who has been on public assistance for a while, I've been told that my ed clock is running out, and unfortunately, if my ed clock runs out, then I don't get to complete that certificate. So that means that I've worked really hard, and I made the dean's list last semester, but I worry that I don't know if I'll have enough time to finish that certificate, because the way things work when you're accessing the job and career services, if your ed clock runs out, they stop paying for stuff and they stop assisting and helping you. And with like the braided workforce services provided by the county, I've had a little bit of difficulty while accessing those. And I went to a meeting of the Workforce Development Board a couple weeks ago to express my appreciation for the internship program that I was in, because I've learned a lot of skills while doing an unpaid internship that have helped me gain a lot more like employable skills that I wouldn't have otherwise had. So if you guys have any helpful suggestions on things that I could do as a job seeker, as a community member, because when I learn something new or like unlock a new skill, I generally try to pass it on and teach it to other people who might be facing the same difficulties. So if there's any way that I can be of assistance, or I guess like learn to help myself better and other people, I would really appreciate it.
Well, we thank you. I got to tell you that the number one thing is the great attitude you have, that it's not always somebody else's fault. What can I do to be better for myself? And I think that's the number one. And I appreciate the idea of what you can do to help the county. It goes back to what John Kennedy said. Don't ask what somebody can do for you, but what you can do. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, because I don't always know, like, you know, the systems that I'm accessing, or like who the gatekeepers are, or even like the process of operations, like the order of operations. Like, okay, this is the person you ask when you need help with this, and then this is, you know, if you're not happy with that result, then you go on to this next person. So if there's a way to incorporate that into the workforce services that are being provided, I think that you guys would have a lot better participation rates among CalWorks participants, and you'd probably have a lot more people who are obtaining, like, you know, really good paying jobs. Because I hate to say it, but the gig economy is working pretty well for me. I just made $45 an hour washing dishes the other night.
Wow, good.
And I wash dishes all day, every day at home, and no one pays me $45 an hour. My kids also do the same volume of a large dinner party too, so I'm pretty happy with that.
Well, good. Well, good.
So,
Well, that's great.
thanks
Well,
again.
thank you so much.
Nice to see you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh, if anyone wants to attend my graduation ceremony, I'm graduating the Women's Economic Ventures program, and I'm giving the speech for our group on May 30th.
Wow, good job.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. All right, I think that was our only speaker card, right? And then we have board comments. Mr. Powers, you have some comment?
Well, I think I was just going to mention to Monica, in terms of when she finds on a website that there's a site that doesn't work, let us know. I think
Yeah.
Mike Pettit just
Mike Pettit.
engaged her there, so
Do you think he knows?
It helps.
about
It helps to
anything
know
about
that
websites?
He might know a
He might
thing or
say
two.
website? Okay, good. All right. Mr. Zaragoza, board comments?
I'd like to share that this Thursday, I'll be attending the Peace Officers Memorial here at the County Center for about 30 minutes, because at 11 o'clock I'll be making a presentation, Christy, Matt, and myself, regarding homelessness over at the Oxnard Chamber at noon. You know, and also additionally, Lourdes, my chief of staff, attended on my behalf a dance recital over at Ocean View School, and there was at least 200 to 300 kids, you know, that were dancing there for working with the Oxnard Boys and Girls Club. You know, really a nice program. And then also she attended for me on Saturday the Habitat for Humanity event over in Oxnard, in Colonia, and with the Southern Gas Company. They had maybe 20, 30 volunteers from the gas company help with the Habitat for Humanity to build, you know, help those folks build their own homes, you know. So I want to thank also Maria Ventura, who sponsored that, and so she was there, and it was a great event. So, and other than that, you know, that's it. Oh, and I didn't have any, believe it or not. This is unusual. I didn't have nobody to adjourn in memory of. So
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Maybe it's a newspaper that's messing up. Nope.
Never, never. I can't believe
She's
you
not
didn't- You didn't go show them how to dance when you went over. Maybe that's why Lord has had to do it for you. Yeah.
My cold didn't help me at all. Thank you.
Supervisor Long.
Hello, thank you. I believe that all of you received the bills with activity position for the state from Hurstbrook and Espinoza. They are our lobbyists. A few of us are going up to the legislative meeting next week, and we have been very intently for this county to ensure that we support or oppose bills that are good for this county. And I wanted to make sure that people out in the community know how much our departments are always advocating for our community members. And so it's not just on the board level, but also in the many different departments. And I want to appreciate all that are attending and doing that, because it's really for the good of the people. And also, I would like to adjourn in memory of those on this list, especially just the horrible news yesterday about Roberta Downing from Port Hueneme. She gave so much to Port Hueneme. I mean, she was her and her husband Larry Downing were recognized for their efforts at the Harbor Island Yacht Club Board of Directors, the Board of the Friends of the Bards, the Volunteers of the Port Hueneme Historical Society Museum. She survived by her husband Larry, 3 children and 6 grandchildren. But I just want to thank her personally for all the volunteer efforts. She was the heart and soul she put into Port Hueneme. It was just devastating to hear about that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for spending your time in Sacramento, so we don't have to. Supervisor.
Thank you. Ask the board to adjourn in memory of people on this list, and just have one announcement, and that is the city of Ventura is really happy to be hosting the launch of the Amgen race next Monday. I think you'll have thousands of people along the route, and this has really become, as we've talked about, a real bicycle mecca here. Almost every year the Amgen tour comes through Santa Barbara, Ventura County in some way because of the great bicycling place. So we have our Cycle Cal Coast effort. Last Sunday we had 45 riders from Cycle Cal Coast come down from Santa Barbara, and what they did was they stayed at our campgrounds at Foster Park on Saturday night, and then they visited the bike-friendly businesses on the way back. And they stopped at those various businesses, and we created a video so that we can post it. We had some fascinating international visitors that we said, how did you find out about this? And they said the Cycle Cal Coast website. So starting to actually have some impact there, and we hope that this Amgen tour will just further put Ventura and Santa Barbara counties on the map of people internationally and nationally in terms of tourism here. Thank you very much.
Right. And commend you for all the hard work you've done, and it's paying off now. You're starting to see it happen. Yeah, that's great. Supervisor?
That would be great to get them to put that on the air, the website for Cal Coast, too. We had a SCAG's General Assembly out in Palm Desert where we had several hundred elected folks, and it was great to be able to be a part of that. Also, we had a Cal State University Channel Islands Site Authority meeting, and I know Supervisor Long participated in that too, and was interested to hear that the universities are looking at perhaps starting their own community choice aggregation. So they may do an upper education CCA. As you know, they are already part of the unincorporated county, which would be part of the Clean Power Alliance. So we'll see where that goes. But in speaking about the Clean Power Alliance, it is a whole new up and coming entity, and there are lots of opportunities. We're putting out RFQs, and we'll be working with a lot of the different chambers throughout our region to see that businesses in our area will be able to apply to provide services and goods for the CPA, the Clean Power Alliance. Last night, I also was able to attend the St. Pascal's Men's Club Awards. They do it annually and award law enforcement and firefighters of the year. And last night, Sheriff of the Year, Deputy John Meeker, was awarded, and also recently retired Ventura County Captain Kenny Capin was awarded for Firefighter of the Year, and for the first time ever, as far as I know, and I've been doing it for about 20 years, they decided to include a district attorney. And Robert E. Coughlin with the Ventura County DA's office was awarded. And just hearing about the work that these people have done, John Meeker, the deputy, was the one that set up the command for when we had the shooting at the Oaks Mall, and just seeing that when you have these kind of crises in the community, that we have these excellent leaders. And Robert Coughlin has been working for a long time finding murderers, and just amazing the amount of work he's done with the city of Oxnard, then came and started working for the district attorney's office, and recently was the one that did the investigation that actually freed someone that had been incarcerated incorrectly for the last 20 years. So excellent to have these quality people working for our county, and nice to see them recognized. I'd also ask that we close and honor the people on this list, and that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Chair Foy, board members. Just wanted to let you all know that it's Nurses Week, so happy Nurses Week. Kim Milstein and team will be having several festivities throughout the week to honor our wonderful nurses throughout our health system. I want you to know also I attended on your behalf a nice ceremony for Danny Laksamana, who was a cook over at our main jail, and they had a real nice ceremony for him. His family was there, his son was there and spoke, and they dedicated an honorary street sign for him out there, and you can see by the large turnout how much he meant to the whole the jail family over there. Also, I want to let you know that our third Economic Vitality Steering Committee will be May 11th at 9, new location at the VCCF Community Foundation in Camarillo. And let's see, did the first 5, Take 5 to Read to Kids last Friday at La Escuelita in Colonia. And finally, attended the closing games on the corporate games this last Saturday, along with Christy Madden, Jesse Prater, and Mark Varela. And I know she'll be doing a big report next week, so we'll wait for that. And then lastly, just a happy upcoming Mother's Day. Thank you.
Yeah, that's true. Can't forget about Mom, right?
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to commend Mike. You know, he did an excellent job in reading for the children. There was good publicity in the newspaper. I see those kids hugging you. Good job.
I didn't even get a cold from it.
I know. And what happened?
Yeah, that's right. You got to feel your own at home.
Thank you, Mike.
I want to adjourn the memory of people on this list, and thank you all for going through quick. That's great. Thank you very much. Let's move on to our regular agenda. And I think we're going to see Catherine Rodriguez is coming down. There you go, ma'am.
The County Executive Office.
There you go.
The item before you today is to authorize the County Executive Office to proceed with the planning of the issuance, the delivery, and sale of the 2018-19 trans or tax revenue anticipation notes for up to $190 million. The actual sizing of the issuance will be determined later as we work with the Auditor Controller's Office to determine the need of the cash needs that we will have for 2018-19. Also, recommendation is to authorize our office to, with the costs of the issuance, including the legal bond counsels, the financial advisors, the underwriting costs, and the interest expense associated with that. This transaction will ultimately provide us savings in terms of pre-funding our retirement contribution to Visara with the earnings of up to $6 to $8 million. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any comments, questions?
I just like to thank you and your team for thinking, doing this, making the action so that we can use our money as wisely as possible. I really do appreciate the foresight in making sure this happens.
I think that's one thing we can always say about Catherine. She's always trying to find a way to use the money wisely. So
That's it.
That's good. That's true.
Good money management, and also helped out a lot by Auditor Controller's Office and
Yes.
County Council. It takes a lot to put all this materials together, and you heard Catherine say it's about $6 to $8 million in savings every year. So,
Yeah,
really
and
good work.
I asked that question in our meeting with this is, how will people be out there, the investment groups that want to put this money up for us, and we've done a very good job, and people are very excited to invest in the county of Ventura. So I appreciate all the hard work to make sure that always is out there, as I know it just doesn't happen, because a lot of counties and cities don't have those kind of records and ability and ratings. So I appreciate the hard work that everybody does on that. So thank you. Yeah, we have a motion. We need a second. It's hard to second to borrow $190 million, but no. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And then on item 34, Supervisor Bennett, he wanted to appoint Gina.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Really excited to recommend the appointment of Gina Petrus to the Behavioral Health Advisory Board. A remarkable woman, and I think she'll be a great asset.
Wonderful. We have a motion, we have a second. Please vote. Thank you. And then Supervisor Parks. Try another few little more
Yes,
revisions.
and I'm hoping that the board had a chance to take a look at the revisions that were suggested for the vision statement. And again, I think that I want to emphasize that we haven't made any differences in the recommendations of the other committees. We have just rearranged the words and reduced redundancies, made it more clear, and I think will be a lot better and easier to read for folks when they want to read about it. So we were asked if we wanted to make changes to bring it forward. This was put together by our planning commissioner, Nora A. Dugas, and would request that we accept this. Are there any comments, or should I make a motion?
I would go for a motion. I just wanted to say thank you. I understand that the vision is a statement that everyone on the outside will be looking at, and it's important for them to understand it and not to be so wordy and make sense. So I appreciate the forethought of rewording it, so thank you.
Thank you. And I also say they're more action words instead of just addressing things. We're actually, encouraging them to occur. And so with that, I have a motion and a second.
Yeah, and I agree. I appreciate that, and I know my staff really liked this, and it was good. So thank you. I know it's not easy just to keep doing this, but thank you for doing it. Sure.
Thank you.
All right,
to Nora.
so we have motion second. Everybody in favor of this? This should be great. Looks like they are. Well, thank you very much. All right, so that's wonderful. Okay, so Leroy, we can go into some closed session, I think? Oh, I'm sorry, do we have 39 and 40? I guess we can do that. I should turn the page. There we are. Yes. We have a motion, we have a second for correspondence. 39.
39 and 40.
You do both of them? There we go.
All right, we got an hour.
One more vote, please, Steve. Steve, can you
somewhere.
vote for the correspondence? There we go. We're good? We're going to,
Okay, yeah, we can go into closed session.
Closed session.
nothing to expect? Oh, well,
Possible we could have an
possibly. Okay, great.
Teaser.
Start the meeting? We're good, Lori? All right. So Supervisor Long.
Hello, thank you. It is my pleasure to present a resolution to Ms. Kim Evans, who's the Executive Director and founder of the Ventura County Military Collaboration. Kim, if you can come up. We wanted to take today to say thank you for all that you have done. I'd love to read this resolution just to hit some of the highlights. As you know, Paul Grossgold and Mike McManus helped with this resolution because there was just so many points we wanted to hit. In November 2011, the Ventura County Military Collaboration has its first meeting, was brought together over 20 hand-picked agencies in Ventura County that offered military and veteran benefits and services. Kim Evans was instrumental in the establishment of this first meeting.
Kim also determined that the agency's criteria, which became the guidelines for the future of Ventura County military collaboration. As executive director, Kim ensured the mission to inspire, strengthen, support, and promote the military and veteran community of Ventura County through collaboration, programs, and direct assistance with monthly collaborative meetings. These meetings consistently have had 60 people and organizations attending. Kim was instrumental in establishing the Military and Veterans Expo, first launched in August 2002 and sponsored by the Military Collaboration. This free annual event continues to grow and is getting better each year. In 2012, just think about this, we only had 300 people attend. And in 2017, there was over 2,000. So just in 5 years, how large you were reaching our community. Kim's outreach has included over 2,500 emails for over the 5 years, noticing going to over 500 people and jobs, noticing to another 300 people. Over the last 2 years, 14 veteran emergency financial requests for approximately $23,000. And with her guidance, there has been 40 legal clinics since 2014, servicing over 600 veterans on a variety of issues, including family law concerns, divorce, custody, and landlord-tenant issues. Kim announced her resignation on the executive director as founder effective April 30th, 2018, to devote time enjoying her own veteran family, and she will be greatly missed by many. So there be resolved that Ventura County Board of Supervisors takes great pleasure in honoring Kim Evans for exemplary service and dedication to the Veterans County military collaboration and for her many years of devoting public service to the veterans of Ventura County and extends best wishes for a long and fulfilled life. So again, thank you very much.
Well, some comments?
Thank you very much for this honor. I really appreciate it. I'm leaving Ventura County I'm staying actually in the county, but I'm leaving the Ventura County Military Collaborative in good hands. The county has really, really stepped up to support these programs, which are really appreciated. And I just couldn't think of a better group of people to take over running what has been really successful. Ventura County is on the map on the federal level as well as the state level due to the collaboration of the remarkable veterans and people who support them in this county. So be proud, and I thank you for all of your support. Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Any veterans, in uniform or not.
Mark.
I see you guys back there, and that's why I say that. Come on, guys. Yeah, all these veterans, you do not know how many veterans we have. Come on, guys. Veterans rule. Yes. You want to squeeze in a little bit more?
Get on a box, Jeff.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
One more, hang on.
Oh, there you go.
Jeff, you got to go down, buddy.
We got veterans. Come on.
It always comes the right time.
Get over on the other side.
Glenn, you gotta come now too, right?
Glenn, you got a veterans? Come on.
Get on in here.
Great. Thank you so much. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you so much for your service, and thank you, Kim, for being there for them. I know.
Okay, so we're gonna, yeah, thank you very much. We're gonna keep this military appreciation going, Military Appreciation Month. We're gonna ask Mike McManus. Mike, are you coming up for our next one? This is a resolution proclaiming May 2018 as Military Appreciation Month, Ventura County. Sir, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Foy. I'm Mike McManus, the County of Ventura's Veteran Service Officer and a retired U.S. Air Force Senior Master Sergeant. I'd like to thank again Supervisor Foy, other members of the Board of Supervisors, Mr. Powers, for honoring veterans today and for your continued support. And Kim alluded to some of that support, and we certainly appreciate that. I just have a few brief comments, but first I'd like to ask all veterans and family members of veterans to stand, even though I think we're just up here. Let's go ahead and stand again. Family members, anyone who had a family member? All right, thank you all very much.
Family members, yeah.
So on behalf of myself and the dedicated staff of the Veteran Services Office, I'd like to call everyone's attention to the fact that May is Military Appreciation Month, which includes 5 specific dates to recognize and honor the service and sacrifice of our men and women in uniform as well as their families. Loyalty Day on May 1st kicked off Military Appreciation Month and is a day set aside for the confirmation of loyalty to the United States and reflects on the proud heritage of our American freedom. Victory in Europe Day recognizes May 8th, 1945 as the day when Germany unconditionally surrendered to the Allies, bringing an end to World War II in Europe. May 11th is Military Spouse Appreciation Day and is traditionally set for the Friday before Mother's Day. It's a day to honor military spouses by recognizing the important role that military families play in keeping our armed forces strong. Armed Forces Day is celebrated the third Saturday in May, May 19th of this year, and is a holiday for citizens to thank our military members for their service to our country by honoring those who served in the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, whether they were served on active duty, Guard, or Reserve. And of course, Memorial Day is observed on the last Monday in May and is a remembrance of our veterans and especially commemorates the men and women who died while in military service to our great nation. As we celebrate Military Appreciation Month, it's a time for every American to recognize those who have served or who have answered the call to service, that they deserve our recognition and gratitude. They've endured the most difficult of conditions to protect America, with many making that ultimate sacrifice to preserve our nation for generations to come. Now, many of these veterans, individuals who have worn our uniform, they're unaware of the benefits and the programs that are available to them because of their service. One way to reach more veterans in order to connect them with their earned federal and state benefits and then these local resources is through partnerships and outreach. It's an honor for the Veteran Services Office to partner with the Area Agency on Aging in developing an outreach video that you're going to watch here shortly. I'd now like to introduce Janet Arnagi, I probably mispronounced that, Public Information Officer for the Area Agency on Aging, who made that video happen. Thank you again.
I will. That's okay. Good morning to you all. My name is Jeanette Haregi. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging. It's an honor to be here this morning to present Remembering Ventura County's Veterans. The video you are about to see was produced through a partnership between the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging and the Ventura County Veterans Services Office. A benefit of this kind of collaboration is having the opportunity to bring to the community an example of how many county agencies work hand in hand to provide a wide variety of services to the public. But perhaps the greatest benefit of a video like this is having a platform from which to honor the service of Ventura County's military veterans. The human experience is powerful, and one of the best ways we can reach the public while also honoring those experiences is by sharing the stories of our clients, our neighbors, our heroes. With that, I am proud to present Remembering Ventura County's Veterans.
I was 17 years old when I enlisted in the Marine Corps.
I was 17 years old when I enlisted in the Navy.
I was 18 years old when I enlisted in the United States Navy.
I was drafted into the United States Marine Corps in January of 1966.
When I was young, I did want to go to college. It was before 9/11, so it was primarily for college benefits.
I decided to enlist in the Navy after hearing my dad say that he regretted not joining the military, and I didn't want to carry that same regret.
I wanted to enlist in the military because I saw a video when I was like 10 years old or 11 years old of an Army commercial.
I served a total from reserve, active duty, and guard 14 and a half years.
I served in the Navy for 8 years.
I served in the military for just over 5 years.
I had a 2-year tour of duty as a draftee. Was sent to Vietnam.
I was deployed to Iraq in 2004 and 2005. Although I was never in direct combat, I was in the theater of operations. We would we would do a lot of convoys because I was a mechanic, and I'd do recovery operations or also be on the gun truck.
As a naval air crewman in the Navy, I was deployed around the world several different times, 3 different times to the Afghanistan theater, once to Southeast Asia, and provided logistical support in various other countries as well, Spain, Italy.
I was deployed one time. I went to Guam. My duties while I was in the military was to be a utilitiesman. I did plumbing and HVAC.
As a draftee, your active duty was for 2 years. Was drafted in the Marine Corps, trained in amphibious tractors, armor. Was sent to Vietnam in April of '66. Spent about half of what ended up being an 18-month tour in the Da Nang area, the second half of it at the Cau Viet River near the DMZ.
One of the biggest things when I came back, I was facing a divorce, and I was worried about losing custody of my daughter. The reintegration process at that point in 2005 wasn't so great.
I know when I first transitioned out of the military, it was very hard. I didn't have any real skills that translated into the civilian side. I was lost. I had no idea what was out there for me.
The reason why it was so difficult for me to transition back into civilian life was because I got kicked out of the military before my enlistment was up. I received a general under honorable conditions discharge. I went to jail for approximately 5 months while I was enlisted.
I returned to the United States in September of '67 and was discharged or released from active duty in December of 1967. Most of the people returning home had received some instructions and warnings. We were aware through news and whatnot of what was going on politically back at home. Things like don't go in public in your uniform, change at the airport or whatever. Everyone that I had socialized with prior to the service did not serve in the military, were actively against the war. And I had a difficult time for a couple of years. A lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol. If it hadn't been because I had a good job before I went to return to and I came back, I probably would not have survived those first couple of years.
From my experience, each veteran does face some type of challenge when it comes back, coming back into civilian life because of the difference of the way work is in military life as opposed to many civilian occupations.
I was alone. I didn't know that I was a veteran per se. I didn't know I had benefits that were accessible to me.
In my case, the resources here in Ventura County have helped me out quite a bit. I was able to utilize the Veterans Treatment Court, and I was able to move on with my life, essentially. I went back to school. I was then hired by a legislative office or an elected official's office, and I can return this service in assisting veterans. I was also able to use the Salvation Army's services to help me get into a home when I was first transitioning out, which was a tremendous help for myself and my family. And I was able to visit the Vet Resource Center, and they helped me just express what I was going through, and it helped me made the transition much easier.
I was part of Veterans Court in 2013 until 2015. So Veterans Court is an opportunity for veterans that get in trouble with the law. For them, because they were in the military, they get the opportunity to not go to jail, but to go into treatment and have their charges either dismissed or dropped or sealed. There was hope that I wasn't in this alone.
Had no intention of ever seeking help or going to the VA. As years went along, because of health issues and other things that went on, and my half-brother's issues with his health and exposure, Agent Orange, the family got on me that I needed to go to the VA. And eventually, because of my health issues, I sought, once we were living here in Ventura, I sought assistance with understanding what I was entitled to and went to the Ventura office, the VSO office. I've gotten significant help from the VSO office, the Vet Center.
Hi, I'm Mike McManus, the County of Ventura's Veteran Service Officer. Ventura County is home to approximately 40,000 veterans, and the Veteran Services Office goal is to improve the lives of every one of those local veterans. I too am a veteran, having served in the United States Air Force for just over 20 years. I know how difficult the transition back to civilian life can be, and I know how easy it can be to feel that you've been forgotten. The resources available through the County of Ventura and our partnering agencies provide year-round services to all veterans. To us, you're never forgotten.
One of the big things that I relay, which one of my therapists told me, is for those that didn't come back, how would you honor that sacrifice and live your life according to that? And that helps me stay grounded as far as what I'm doing at the VSO office is how can I help my fellow veterans in their quality of life, and you know what resources can we lead them to help them get to that point.
My life has been changed drastically since I was younger because of veteran services. I didn't have stability when I was a kid. I didn't have a family when I was a kid necessarily. I was in programs a lot, and since becoming an adult, since participating in the Veterans Court program and the West LA treatment program, recovery has been possible for me. I don't have financial insecurity. I have a community that cares about me. I'm able to be of service to that community as well because I realize what it means to give back now.
We stand together and we support each other. It's what we didn't get or have when we returned from the war, and that was the biggest loss for the Vietnam vets. Finding out when you get into a room of a bunch of guys that were in different services and maybe slightly different times, but you get to discussing and talking and you realize you weren't alone and none of it was unique. And that's a huge healing process when it occurs, as it occurs.
The camaraderie means to me that I'm not alone. It means that I'm loved.
Mike, we got a resolution for you, and none of us can say thank you enough. You know, people, the rest of us get the opportunity to go on and live our lives, and you and the rest who've done this for this community have gone and served, are plucked out, gone someplace, sat for 4 years, 8 years, some careers, and come back. And this just, I think, is the opportunity for us to say appreciation and whatever it takes to give people their lives, to continue their lives. For us, I know the rest of this board, and hopefully all the boards throughout this country, believe those kind of things, because without you, we don't sleep at night, we don't do all the things. And so we just want to say thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, Mike, I just want to thank you again for the good work that you do every single day for our veterans. And I want to share with you, I support veterans 100%, always have. You know, and I've mentioned before in the past that I've had relatives from my dad all the way to now serving in the military. So I really have a lot of respect for the military, for those who have served and those who are serving now, and those, like you said, have given their paid the ultimate price to continue to serve our country and to save what we have now. So I just want to thank all of you tremendously for the excellent work you've done.
Well, I certainly appreciate the support of the board, and it was an honor to serve, and it's an honor to continue to serve my fellow veterans.
That's right.
And we derive a lot of pleasure from being able to assist them. So thank you. All right, come on down. Let's get to 3 or whatever. Yeah.
Look good in the listening.
Just so important
Mike, thank you very much. Mike, if I have a question when you're done. On the expo, will that be happening this year?
No, ma'am, it won't. What we are looking at is doing a job fair, and there will be minimal amount of service providers, the vet center, VA healthcare, my office, that kind of thing. But there will be we're going to try to keep it on the same date, August 25th, same location in the auditorium there. But the actual full-blown expo, since Kim has provided such a high bar, just with planning and things like that, we weren't able to do it. So that's going to be back in August of 2019.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mike. And I also want to, Mike Planet came out from the courts. He was here to be part of this too, and he just had to go out the back, but I appreciate him coming out here too. So thank you very much. Leroy, we were in closed session, and you might have an announcement out of closed session.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just short announcement on item 42. And the board authorized county council to provide legal defense to county employees as necessary in the California State Bar matter number 18-012646. And the vote of the board was 5-0. That's it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And something that's very important to all of us, and I think it's important that we celebrate it at least once a year. It's Water Awareness Month, and for this county, it's a big deal. Michaela Brown, thank you. A veteran herself. So.
I just want to thank the board, and for the record, my name is Michaela Brown. I'm the Director of Water and Sanitation for the Public Works Agency of Ventura County. As you all know, water is a very precious resource both in the county and the state of California. It's necessary for life. It's necessary for growing food and food security. I attended a conference at UCLA yesterday that was focused on water in conflict and collaborative solutions within the Middle East and Africa. And there was a whole range of both water experts from the state of California, academics, and if we think we have conflict problems in this area, they're still fighting wars over there. So it was very enlightening, but again, continued to show us that even in our direst situations, we are still incredibly blessed with infrastructure and ability to provide water even during drought, and good planning and an effort throughout the county for collaboration. So
yeah, wonderful. And it sounds like it's not going to get easier. I saw this whole thing about the Colorado River and the whole fights that might come out of that and more things. But let me come on down. Thank you.
I think this is hers.
It'll be the one on the left.
I think this is it.
You can go back to that,
I'm not sure if it's the same.
I know you've all asked to have the judge sit there a little longer, but I thought it would be worth us bringing him up, and he must have good news for us. Right? Sir?
I am Stephen Hintz, Ventura County's Treasurer Tax Collector. It's always an honor to be able to present a report to the board. I just want to say in our family we celebrate veterans every day. My father served from 1939 to 1965 and was everywhere. I had 10 uncles who served in World War II, a war that none of us actually remember. 2 brothers, several cousins. The Army paid for a scholarship that covered most of my expenses through college. The Navy started paying me while I was in law school, provided me with my first job, which eventually gave me the experience to come to Ventura County and start working. Half my staff has a military connection now. So we understand what veterans have that many of us do not, and what they need that many of us should be able to provide. This month's investment report is preceded by an honor granted to the Assistant Treasurer Tax Collector, Sue Horgan, who has been identified and certified now by the California Municipal Treasurers Association as a certified California Municipal Treasurer, a significant certification and award for hard studying, an award I have not received because the studying is too hard.
You shouldn't have set that up. We could make some good comments here.
Well, there are like 27 tests that you have to take. My testing days, I don't know. Here we have a report regarding investments. It's a favorable report. It shows continuing rising lines in all of the important categories. The daily portfolio balance jumped significantly, and this report, which ends on March 31st, shows the highest March balance ever. And I'll tell you that the report I'm writing right now to deliver in June reflects an even higher balance and higher even than I expected. The annualized percentage yield continues to increase, this time at 6 basis points. Next month will show an increase of 17 basis points. In other words, the line will steepen in terms of earnings. The report reflects an approximate yield to maturity, that is, if we just held everything and didn't do anything, would yield 1.66. Right now, the yield under those circumstances would be 1.80%. In other words, an increase of 14 basis points, which is a remarkable increase, but it's predictable because of the nature of the things that we've been buying for the last few months, which are averaging about 2% annualized yield. We're still in a rising interest rate market. I do not usually give predictions, but I believe there will be 3 rate increases of 25 basis points yet this calendar year. It's already had the effect of increasing the cost of borrowing money, as we discussed in the Financial Planning Committee meeting regarding the issue of the one-year trans notes. So it will have a significant effect on the county's borrowing plans for the next couple of years, that interest rates will go higher. As I said, I believe 3 increases this calendar year and at least 2 increases in the first 8 months of next year. So these rate increases are great for the pool, makes the pool look swell, but it's going to cost you as borrowers and the public as borrowers more money, which will have a negative impact, I think, at least on the private sector, about home loans and automobile loans. But for us, for me, for the investment pool, it's all good news and shape up to be continuing good news. I am, of course, interested in answering your questions.
Well, there's no question your pool has really grown. I mean, over the years when I first got here, we're down those 1.2, 1 point whatever, now you're over doubled the size of that pool.
It has, and part of the reason for that is the state is no longer acting like a traditional debtor. That is, instead of making slow payments late and in smaller amounts, they're paying in full on time. And so agencies that rely on state money do not have to use their pooled money to pay their ongoing expenses,
right,
particularly the schools.
That's right. And then the $344,000 increase over February, that's a tremendous increase.
Well, I always warn people there were 31 days in March. So what happens in March, especially compared to a 28-day February, is not always the two perfect comparisons. But yes, the gross amount of money earned is increasing as the size of the pool remains high and the yield on current purchases goes up.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Again, I want to thank, the treasurer collector and Sue, the deputy you have an excellent staff, as I joined your committee, and I think I met with you 2 or 3 times. I just want to commend you for the excellent work that you do and the very conservative approach that you take in investing county money.
Well, we want it to be there when you need it.
That's right.
That's the number 1 rule, is that if you need it for something, it's there for you to take, and that's our principal concern. And thank you for the compliment.
And the tremendous amount of money that's invested is just, lots of zeros.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it goes back. I know you guys worked hard. You've proven yourselves in a lot of the cities and other water districts are putting money in with you because you've done the right thing. And one other thing I want to just make a quick comment is, over the first years right here, they only had certain comparing against LAIF or whatever. You've put all those together. You don't always rank the highest. What I love is you're always right at the top with the safest fund you can have, so.
I believe benchmarks are something to try really hard to beat, but not to feel too bad about if you don't quite get there, as long as you've picked a very competitive benchmark. And what we've done in the last several years is find good benchmarks. We would like to use other counties that have AAAF ratings by Standard & Poor's, but there are only 2 other counties in California that do. And getting their reports would result in a further delay in being able to do the monthly report, so we don't use them. But Orange County and Contra Costa County would provide challenging benchmarks as well. Mrs. Horgan is actually going to go down to Orange County later this week and sit in on their investment work group meeting just to see what they do. And that's part of it. And if they're doing something good, we'll steal it.
Well, that's good.
They'll share it. That's great.
Yeah, anyway, but, it's great to see that we're at the top of the top. Only three out of the 58 counties that have this kind of a rating for what we're doing. So thank you very much. Appreciate that, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion. We have a second. And congratulations on your designation. All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another victory.
Keep the
Thank
money
you.
coming. Yeah, I don't see people voting you down on most of your stuff. I love it. All right, so we're going to receive and file a presentation for discussion fiscal 2018-19 general fund target budget capital projects. She's back.
Good morning again,
Good morning.
Supervisor Foy. Members of the board, CEO Powers, for the record, my name is Catherine Rodriguez at the County Executive Office. Our presentation before you is to provide you the general fund target budget, the capital projects updates, and then the debt for fiscal year 2018-19. So we start with the budget guidelines, primarily that delivering the county services effectively and efficiently. We abide by fiscal discipline toward the board's commitment to a structurally balanced budget. And that means we have to ensure that the revenue losses equates to departmental reductions in costs. Also, the budget should be aligned with the strategic plan. And we continue to reduce overhead from ISF departments and ongoing savings as attributed by the Lean Six programs and other savings that each department has. And lastly, we have to ensure that we provide transparency, and that means credibility in the community by communicating budget issues timely. These are the budget reports that has been presented to your board, as well as the ones that are going to be presented. We have the quarterly budget update for the current fiscal year. We have done the budget development manual in March, and then we have the presentation, a more detailed presentation of the budget on June 5th, along with the forecast as well for the third quarter. Our budget process starts with actually calculating our general fund target. We go and assess how much we have available for our general purpose revenue, and then followed by developing that net cost targets, meeting with the departments, every single one of them, with the county executive office, the budget finance analysts, and the representative from each departments. And then we will have 3 departments, namely RMA, the public defender, and airports to present their budget. And then we will have 4 more next week. And then here we are, we're presenting the budget target for general fund and then the capital projects and debt presentation. It's a shorter presentation today as compared to the June 5th one. And we'll come back on June 5th, and then the final budget hearings on June 2018. In summary, for total budget appropriations for whole county is $2.23 billion. It has slightly decreased by almost $10 million, or 0.4% from 2017-18, and I'll pause a little bit. That's general fund increased, however, by 2.1%, and that's $22.6 million. It's still within the inflationary rate. The non-general fund decreased, however, by 2.8%, or $32 million, attributed by capital projects one time completed. 3 major ones there is from the airport for the northeast hangar of approximately $9.5 million. We have also the water protection district, approximately $10 million for the completed projects for the Sespe Creek levee and the Santa Clara River levee. Also, we have the water protection district's completed projects, and we have ITSD Gartner. ITSD have been managing the processing of accounts payable for this group in the tune of $5 million that has been discontinued, and so therefore it's now extracted from the overall budget. And we have VCMC, the mitigation efforts with working with Huron Consulting engagement. It's projected that there will be some savings of about $18 million as projected by VCMC to reduce costs. So therefore, we have that $32 million approximately reduced in non-general fund appropriations. Now, on the general fund general purpose revenue, which is mainly from property taxes, 87% of such, we have $418 million. It's grown by 5.4%.
Could I go back? I'm sorry, trying to follow here. The $32.3 million, that is a decrease in the anticipated amount for the general fund. And you said part of that is because VCMC mitigation efforts were to provide a certain amount of funds. Was the amount of funds from the VCMC mitigation efforts not what it was anticipated to be?
This is actually the growth of the expenditures from VCMC is going to be mitigated, such as from salary savings and services and supplies.
Okay, thank you.
On the general fund purpose revenue, as I said, we have a 5.4% increase in there. The secured property tax right now is projected at 3.5%. We're still waiting for the estimate from the assessor's office. And now the sustainability fee is at $2.4 million.
Is that sustainability fee up $2.4 million, or it is $2.4 million?
Yes, the sustainability is now at $2.4 million. It used to be until fiscal year 12-13, it was $200,000. So it's been growing approximately 25% for the last 3 years. That's pretty good.
And that's the cost from the waste management landfill?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we had a big increase recently, so haven't we? And I've heard it's going to go on for a while, the increases, so.
Yeah. And then, as the judge said earlier in his presentations, interest earnings are going up because of the turns of how many turns it will be increasing the interest earnings. And then the redevelopment agency, property tax revenues up by $2.8 million. Now it's $27.3 million as compared to $24 last year.
Is there going to be a time in that budget where that goes away? Not the increase, but we just say redevelopment agencies are gone, and we just say it's part of our budget. You're just showing that portion that's kind of trailing out there because they've sold off some things and they've closed.
Right.
So this is a new increase?
Right. So this is actually, yes, correct. Yeah. And as you know now, comes July 1, there will be a consolidated oversight of the RDA.
Right.
And a plan is that they would have to evaluate those debts and assets that are out there. So that would be some form of a recalculation of what that is.
And then at some point, there'll be probably one or a couple more years of one-time money where they sell those assets, finalize that.
That's correct.
And then we'll be done with.
Yeah, but it will be a long time.
Yeah.
Well.
And that was I think it is going to be decades.
Yeah.
Well, I know we get more money because now it doesn't go right. I'm just curious. It just becomes part of.
When the debts are paid off.
Yeah, the debts are paid off.
But it will be a longer time.
Yeah, there will be some of that, yeah.
And then the half-cent sales tax, which is the Prop 172, is now $72.8 million. Is a 3.4% increase from the last fiscal year. And of that, Fire is also is getting $2.6 million. Most of it is going to the public safety. This is the assessed valuation. Now we're at the $133 billion, or 3.5% increase. As you can see, the last fiscal year we budgeted at 4.6. We came in at 4.94, which gave us an additional $1 million.
You budgeted what last year?
4.6%.
And it came in at 4.94.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I said again, this is the trend for the half-cent sales tax for public safety, and it's grown to 3.4%, and that's the trend. Is still increasing. Now that we have the key budget assumptions, this has been actually a part of the budget development manual. Some of this are already in there. Of note is the salary increases, which includes those benefit and negotiated salaries. And then we have the retirement contribution, which has decreased from 27.52% to 27.09% of the pensionable compensation. And most of the actual decrease of that is mostly coming from the in retirement investment gains, which accounts for 0.3% of that. Now, the retirement in total, the contribution for the retirement contribution is projected at $212 million.
Is that just our county contribution, or is that total employee, everybody's total?
That's total county employer contribution.
Employer only,
Employer
not employees
only,
portion?
Not employee.
Just employer.
It's just employer.
Okay.
And it slightly decreased. Last year was an increase of $9 million. This year is going to be a $6 million increase, so it's lower. Services and supplies, this is just to show you the trend of the inflation from the last 5 years. Now it's at 2.8%. And the ISF, note again, have continued to stay very reasonable rates. Right now we have an overall flat for GSA and ITSD. And on this budget, election costs has been is not in the appropriations. It will be funded through the assigned fund balance, and we'll come back to your board to increase the budget for the election. It's not for consistency purposes. It's not included in their appropriation, but will be put into the assigned fund balance. Estimated approximately $1.4 million. This is actually just the overall general fund target. The appropriations has increased by $22 million, or $1,106,000, and the direct revenue that we get from that services is $688 million. So the other half is coming from the general purpose revenue to make us structural balanced budget. So we have $688 from the charges and revenues that we get from intergovernmental, and then we have the general purpose revenue to fill the remainder of the unfunded appropriations. This is Supervisor Park's request last year, to where we have the program categories, and then those are the specific departments, just to illustrate what are those departments within those program areas. For general government, environmental balance, we have health and human services, administration of justice, and then the other general fund, which is the special accounts contribution, capital projects, and debt service. And then on the non-general fund departments, those are the different categories. So based on that, the general fund target, according to program areas, environmental health has grown 10.9%, along with health and human services 6.7%. And so the total, the general purpose revenue allocated is a 5.4%, overall increase.
Do we see an increase in the fact that we addressed a lot of services towards the Thomas Fire?
It's not included in this budget, Supervisor, but it will be on the fiscal year 2017-18 budget.
Okay, we'll probably see, an
Right.
uptick and
Thomas
a
Fire.
drop.
Right.
Okay. The environmental health going up almost 11%. What's the deal with that?
So environment health, we have $1 million so basically, I'm going to go through my cheat sheet.
Okay, yeah, I know you, I'm sorry, I know you probably don't know every one of those. It was a pretty,
Right.
most of this seems within, the 3%, 4% normal. It just seemed like that.
Right.
I didn't know if there was something special that we were doing environmental health that all of a sudden we had a huge.
Well, and
Sorry, go ahead.
I know we're doing a lot of
We
improvements
have
out there.
the animal services in there.
Oh, is that animal services too?
Right, and then
Oh.
we have the arm.
Okay,
yeah,
okay, the
RMA
way it's
in there.
described, okay, maybe
Yes,
that's what,
yeah.
I understand. Okay, that's great.
Well, and just to ask also with the Thomas Fire, where does that show up in the line items as an additional cost, but we'll find the revenue later as we're reimbursed by the state and the federal? Not the whole percent, but a proportion of it.
Correct, yes.
I don't know where that is.
So the Auditor Controller's Office has set aside a specific line item on the Thomas Fire impact. And I'm sorry, I don't have the specific
that's
number
fine.
for that. We'll provide it to you next time.
Is that going to be in this year's budget? Is that going to be in this year's budget, or is this?
17,
next
18
year's?
included it for that line item, but for Thomas Fire, it's not specifically identified as to how much will be the impact for 2018-19, as in, let's say, for instance, RMA for the increase in those permits and such.
But most of Thomas Fire impacts, the
17,
emergency costs, et cetera, are in the 17-18 budget, not the 18-19 budget. Correct.
Great.
That's a good clarification.
And now this is by the program area, by dollar amount. As you can see, the percentage for admin of justice is 41.8%, and the health and human services is 38.9%. And then we have the other general fund, and the general government is at 6.9%, and then environmental balance is 4.2% of the total appropriations. And this is sliced according to the expenditure type, to where 60% of the budget is allocated for salaries and employees and benefits. And then we have services and supplies at 22%, and the other charges of 12%, and then the fixed assets, and then uses, other financing uses at $49 million or 4.5%.
As a policy matter, we operate our planning department similar to an enterprise zone, in the sense that applicants have to pay for the services that they receive. And I think it might be just something to put out there for consideration at budget time, that when there are questions about a particular project, it's not really your forte, but that even getting information from the planning department about an applicant causes the applicant to have to pay more. So I think we need to take a look at how tight we are with that, quote, enterprise type of model, because I don't want to preclude the ability for the public to get information, because the concerns that then we have to charge the applicant more money.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to bring that out there as a consideration in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Supervisor Parks. But just so you know, too, we have been looking at that, sort of rebalancing a little bit the enterprise aspect of that, putting more general fund dollars in that so we can keep those fees level, and working with RMA to do that. So, and you'll probably hear some of that during their presentation today. Thank you.
So this is the general fund target as allocated according to the different programs. So admin justice gets 59%, or $247 million, and then the rest, health and human services 12.5, other general fund 65 million, and then the general government is 10%, and then environmental balance at 2.7%. So this is the unassigned fund balance to revenue ratio. We're at 17-18, we're at the 13% level based on that budget. And our goal, the county's goal, as the GFOA recommended, is at 15%. So to get it to 15%, that's $162 million, or might require an additional $22 million. However,
Is the GFAOA goal of 15% specifically, does that specifically refer to unassigned fund balance? Or I heard recently the GFAOA goal is actually that all of your reserves total to 15%.
just for the unassigned fund balance. However, as you can see here, even if it's at 13% on the budgetary fund balance, if we look at the CAFR itself, our fund balance is already at the 15%. So we're already at the 15% on the CAFR side.
So we've already met the goal.
Right, on the CAFR, because it includes the theater and other funds. This one does not include.
So on our CAFR, we've met that goal of 15%.
Correct.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And on preliminary budget, we are actually discussing about the additional, because of the budget appropriation is growing to 11.06, 1,106,000,000. That would require additional assignment from the unassigned, from the assigned fund balance to unassigned, to approximately $3 million. Yeah.
So what we've done, as we've done in years past, is there's fund balance from this current year. We'll make recommendations to your board about where that goes. And so we're looking at a range of 15 to 20 million for this year, allocating about 3 million of that to unassigned to keep this going at its 13%, given the growth in the general fund budget. And the rest will automatically, per your board's direction, go into program mitigation, which is an assigned fund balance.
Mm-hmm. I'd just say I think it's a really healthy way to budget, to continually strive to get there. And that we're probably, well over 90% towards that goal. So I think that it's very positive.
And these are the key future impacts. We've had discussed this already from the quarterly budget update. It's the same. The pre-funding, the capital requirements is the future impacts, the pre-funding of the certain projects. Right now, though we have allocated approximately $8 million for required maintenance, GSA is undergoing to have a study to do a more comprehensive study for the needs for the upkeep of our county buildings. So there might be an increase there. So the deferred maintenance project here, the leftover is still $27 million after the required maintenance budgeted for this year. So at least from that trend, it's been going down. It was $41 million a couple of years ago, 36 and then 35 for this fiscal year.
Excuse me, once I may just add to that, just a note that GSA has actually commissioned a study to actually go back and revisit that list of capital projects and required maintenance projects.
Yes.
So we'll be taking we should have that for you in the next month or two.
And this is a real meaningful sign of good health, that you're decreasing the deferred maintenance list. You talk about trying to leave the place better, when you leave the place with growing deferred maintenance risk, you're not doing the job. Thank you.
And then the retirement contributions, the actuarial assumptions might change. I think it's being talked at the Visera that the proposal could come in this June. I think it's on discussion right now. So we would anticipate a change in our assumptions in there. And then the shift in the state's services to the county, which would impact the county's budget. Primarily, we have seen the Human Services Agency in there from IHSS and CalWorks. And then we have the public safety realignments, the criminal justice realignments, more workload due to the change in regulations. And then recently we have that 10% cut for the court facilities funding, which we had, the GSA has done a good job negotiating with the state so that the reduction is not as much. And then anticipated also is the MIA revise. We would see some good news in there regarding the Thomas Fire. Yes. And then again, we have the VCMC cash flow and financial performance. As mentioned earlier, here in consulting engagement will provide us reduction in the costs as well as providing an enhancement on the revenue or a tune of approximately $35 million for both mitigation actions. And then we have the revenue trend. One there is the SB1 Road Repair and Accountability Act. Its possible repeal, which would mean lower revenue for the county. And however, the SB 231 provides us an ability to capture some charge services pertaining to the stormwater expenditures. And then we have the public safety, which the public defender will be talking about today regarding the bail reform. The Ventura Firefighter Training and Certification Program, Supervisor Long, along with Assistant Sheriff Belayub, went before the state to present the case against this. And then we have the legislative changes on federal taxes. Now we're moving into the capital projects. Actually, these are the main guidelines that we make sure we abide by, consistent again with the county strategic plan. We have to get some input from the board, county staff, and the citizens' needs. And along with the asset management, how do we assess how the investment would be performed, and is cost and benefit versus space utilization and all that. So we've seen this again from the mid-year budget presentation on the capital project accomplishments. The Lower Plaza, the disability management, leave of absence. It started in January 2018 and it's completed in February 2018. We have ITSD, Auditor's Controller's Office, and CEO HR working together to have this way of tracking those leave of absence that would yield cost savings. And then we have the fire station number 35, the VCMC replacement hospital wing that came in under budget, and then the acquisition for those Firehawks or Blackhawks helicopters. In progress is what we call now as HPU, or the Health Programming Unit, the 64-bed Todd Road Jail Medical Facility, $61 million. The RFP is scheduled to release this month, and the awarding of that design and build contract is on September, of which there's a 10% county match, which is we already have signed for that, $6.1 million. And then again, the PeopleSoft upgrade, which it went live on January 2019. The general fund, the P-tax, the integrated property tax assessment, and the collection system, a $13 million project. Now it's at 50% completed, and it's estimated to go live on June 2019. And then the ECM, or the Enterprise Content Management System, this was enhance the retrieval of information between the public defender and the DA. And then on the non-general fund, Jorge is going to talk more about that later on, about the accomplishments on projects that they have. And then the fire stations in progress is in station number 27 and 20 from Fillmore and Ojai. And then this is the upfitting, the other one's the acquisition. This is the upfitting cost for those two Firehawks that would actually increase the capacity of the load of those machines. And then we have the Santa Paula Hospital seismic compliance for the ICU HVAC system.
So Catherine, are you saying it's $10.8 million for the inspection and upfitting of the two?
The two Firehawks that were acquired, yes. That's the most updated value.
Yeah, I mean, even getting them at a great price, it's a huge expense.
It's a good deal.
At the same time,
It's a cost savings from a new one, from what I understand.
From a
Costs
new
even
one.
more for a new one.
Really?
Cost a fortune.
And then we have the Potrero Road, a total of 5.6 miles in both directions, 2.8 each. And the phase one is now fully funded. and is estimated completion of that late summer 2019. And then phase 2, there'll be a grant opportunity that would be released this month, and then the deadline is in July. And then we have the VCMC time and attendance project for the time, Chronos timekeeping, to help in the capturing of time reporting. And then on the general fund, we have the animal shelter in Camarillo and improvements in there. It's still being evaluated as to which location exactly. However, we have set aside, at least for the projection, cost for the financing for the need. It might not be the full capital requirement, but we have put in some adjustments in there. And then we have the government center fuel tank replacement, a regulation that passed in 2014 to discontinue a single wall now, so that by 2025 it will be all double wall. So that would at least give us, to comply with that law, it will give us a better, an improvement as well as we invest into this double wall.
On the tanks, have we looked into going above ground? I mean, moving the tanks up as opposed to?
It's down. It's
I understand that.
double wall. Oh, I'm sorry.
But in some cases, they're moving the tanks up.
Oh, okay.
Have we looked at that, because?
Better person to answer that question would be GSA. I mean, but I don't.
It's something that we can look at, in the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They will? They will look at it. Okay. They will
Thank
look
you.
at it, yeah. And then we have the non-general fund, that's recommended priority projects. We have the Thousand Oaks area, working with City of Thousand Oaks staff on the location. And then we have the fire department training, that's a 22-acre parcel of land that was
Before you
acquired
go-
from the College District. Yes.
Before you go to the next slide, I have two questions. One is, we have something titled recommended priority projects.
Yes.
And then you also have capital projects in progress.
Right.
So what's the difference? Because I noticed, like, there are no fire stations in Thousand Oaks area planned in the capital projects in progress, but then you have it as a priority project. So I don't
Right.
know the difference between those categories.
Yeah, so the other one is the in progress are projects that already been approved by the board in terms of the project in itself, and it's already been started. But for this one has not been started yet, but we're looking for the place to where
Okay,
it will
so
be. Yeah.
the other ones have already been approved, money's been
Right.
allocated, or will be allocated in this coming budget.
Right.
So then my next question is, we have 3 fire stations in Thousand Oaks all looking for a new home,
Mhm.
and I'm wondering which this one applies to.
I think it's the Sherwood area.
Oh, is that for Sherwood? Because we also have one on Arbalest that is right now being proposed, and a property purchased for that.
Okay.
And then we, I guess, we have a vacant station elsewhere, so. But you're thinking the 8.5 is for Sherwood?
Right, Sherwood,
It is?
yeah.
And do we know where that will be located? We'll get into that.
Yeah.
That's what makes it a priority.
Yeah.
But there is no details.
Well, the city of
Uh-huh.
Thousand Oaks is still working with property owners to try to identify a good location.
Okay, we'll hear more in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That hasn't been decided.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and the same goes on the question of the fire department training administration. I know we approved the purchase of the land and changing it with the community college. So it'll be interesting to see the 5 million, what other items are being built on that 22-acre parcel to
I
build it
think
all.
it's-
But I'm sure we're going to hear more about it later.
Right, so the training and I think the
And I'm
admin.
sorry, just to go back again, so the $8.5 million for the 2018-2019 budget could potentially be the purchase of property and the beginning of the construction of the replacement for the Sherwood Fire Station? All that, is that what the $8.5 million would be for?
That's the estimate, yes.
And to be allocated, and so begin potentially in the 2018-2019 timeframe?
Yes,
That's news.
okay,
Okay.
okay.
Well, it's all pending, working with your office and the city of Thousand Oaks.
Where it will be and all
Exactly,
that.
yeah,
Public output, input. And all
of course.
that stuff.
yeah, all of that is yet to happen and will happen, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. And continued, we have the Saricoy, the golf course, the fader wing remodel, which is $5.6 million to upgrade the building to OSHPD non-structural performance category 4. The funding here, actually, we have some, since the building of the HRW has some savings, we could repurpose some of those funding through it would go through the Finance Committee for approval. We would go for the bond financing to use some of those unused funds to go over the VCMC fader wing remodel. And then we have the Fillmore Library improvements. This is in addition to the 3,000 square feet library that they have right now. Some fundings have been identified, but still there will be some more work into some funding campaign in there, Supervisor Long.
Yep. If anyone wants to donate.
And then lastly is the runway again, which is Jorge is going to talk about. Projects under consideration. We have the permanent supportive housing and needy individual families. This is actually coming from the governor's budget from the Senate, that there is what we call the no place like home, to repurpose the Mental Health Services Act funding to go to this project or initiative from the state Senate. And then we have the healthcare facility in Santa Paula Harvest at Limonera, up to about 99,000 square feet for a healthcare facility there. And also some county departments such as HSA, AAA, or library, collection of payments from the tax payments. And then we have the Family Justice Center that would at least address the issue about the support for victims. And then repurposing of the Knoll building. There's a lot of interested people that would want to repurpose that, 41,000 square feet as the...
I'd like to make sure that, go on record here, is to make sure that one of the things that we think about in terms of repurposing that is for homeless shelter services. I know there's some options there that seem that might uniquely fit in that particular area, so I want to make sure that's at least one of those things that's looked at there. Thank you.
Yeah. And then last month, there were public works have presented two projects in there that's coming up, which is the county bridge improvements, $50 to $70 million. And then for probation, the repurposing of the building, right now of the 420 units that we have, the census has gone down, and so there could be a possibility of using some of those spaces.
Right.
That'd be good.
If I may, also, as I think we've discussed before, Chief Barella went ahead and added our county to a list of those pilot counties that are piloting the notion of moving transitional age youth from the jail to the juvenile facility. And that's something we're going to be working on going forward.
And this is, now we're moving into the debt payment. So these are all from the general fund, a total of a debt payment of $15 million. However, we have some revenue offsets from that, which nets down to $7 million in total of net debt payment, which is actually included in our general fund target, general purpose revenue funding. And then the next one is the 5-year debt service projection. As you can see, the Juvenile Justice Court and the 2240 Gonzalez building is going to expire, or it would be paid off. Comes 2021 and beyond, there will be no payments for that. However, you would see that on the P-tax, as we consume or the project is completed, the payments will then rise up from 18-19 of $390,000 up to about 1.2 next fiscal year, and then it's going to be 1.7 in place of those expired debts. So we're looking at $15 million and $15 million in 18-19, but the net debt payment of that is $7 million. And this is for the non-general service non-general fund debt service projection, and we have $32.6 million in total debt payment, mostly coming from VCMC, the replacement wing of $16 million a year. And then we have the VCMC equipment for the hospital replacement wing needs of $10 million a year from 3 financing sources.
Excuse me, Catherine, we're going to see exploding debt service at the federal level here 10 years from now. And we certainly have the pleasant view here, being able to look at the opposite, it's not exploding. Is any of our debt service financed in a way where as interest rates go up, the debt service is going to go up, or are we fixed here with all of these rates?
Right. So far, our rates is fixed for these projected years. Varies from 2.5% to approximately 5%.
The rate is fixed between 2.5 and 5. You mean some of the debt is fixed at 5 and some of the debt is fixed at 2.5?
Correct.
But it's fixed.
Yes.
Great.
And what's good about this, one interesting fact, is that at least for the debt per capita, in total from last fiscal year, for the total debt, we have $424 million. Debt per capita is about almost $500. So that's pretty good in comparison to the state or the United States at the $60,000 level.
Give me those numbers again.
$495 debt per capita if you use the $424 million versus the 857,000 population.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yeah.
Catherine, why is the replacement wing all of a sudden in 222-23 jump almost $1 million? Is there something about that?
The hospital replacement wing?
Yeah, why does that jump in that year for some reason?
Right, because it's going down. It's going up to the 5% level, and it has varying rates.
Okay, that was fixed for a 4, 5, 6 year period of time, and then it raised it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why it's going up.
Yeah.
So there is something 100% fixed.
This is the considerations that we have to make sure that those debts are legally authorized, board has approved, and then the debt burden on the community. We have the debt per capita, percent of personal income, and assessed property value. This is just for tests when we go to the rating agencies of what are the things they look at. And then what are the existing debt service requirements, affordability of such, and then that's it.
Do we have in our budget manual an actual policy that says our goal is to try to maintain level debt service of any sort? Do we have anything that's
Yes, it's on our admin manual, the debt service utilization. There's a criteria there. And then also we have it on, at least on the admin manual, we have a debt utilization policy.
And that policy is?
And the policy states what are those requirements that needed to be met, and then the financing in itself to make sure that there's a cost-benefit analysis that needed to be done, and there is supposed to be funding behind those projects on the debt.
I guess, is there also it's not a locked-in thing, but at least our goal is to try to have a policy of relatively flat debt service.
Is that the guidance up here?
Yes, all right, so.
That
6%
there you
are
go.
kind of our number
Right.
there as we try
So
to
we have
save.
the 6%, the county debt limit
There we go.
guideline.
That's
Yeah.
what I was looking for.
Oh, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Okay. And then the rating agency is at the 10%. So that's approximately $110 million versus
2013, we're at 4, we're going down 3, so we're going the right way.
the total county debt is about $40 million. All right. And this is our last slide on the continuing investment in our infrastructure, our technology, and our people. With that, I'm happy to entertain any more of your questions.
First of all, I'd just like to thank you and your group and all of the department heads. This presentation is only a smidgen of the amount of hours that it takes to put all this budgets together. And I appreciate everyone's forethought of what projects are to come
to improve for our community's sake. I believe that everyone has that same thought process, so thank you very much. And I'll motion to receive and file.
Thank you.
I just want to say that this was an exceedingly clear presentation, and just in general, your presentations have become more and more clear, and
Text.
I
Thanks
really,
to Mike.
really
And then
appreciate
the
that,
staff.
because it's good for us then to be able to communicate to the public when you have that stuff. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, Catherine.
What
I
he's
just
saying
wanna
is
thank-
you know your audience, that's all.
I just- I want to thank you,
Need it simple, dumb it down to us. Yeah.
Catherine, I want to thank you and your staff.
Yeah.
Excellent work. You know, I know it takes a lot of work to do, prepare a budget.
Yeah.
So, but it's outstanding and clear understanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick note to the team, all the department heads who helped make this happen, the Auditor Controller's Office, as well as the Assessor, Dan Goodwin. Our office consults with him, I think, like every 10 minutes on what he thinks the property tax is going to be for next year, so we really dial it in. I think last year was a good example. We predicted 4.6 with your partnership, and it came in at 4.9, so we appreciate that partnership and guidance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's it for you?
That's it
That's
for
all
me.
the fun you want?
That's all.
That was great. No, it was really, yeah, very good. Appreciate you putting all that together, and so we have a motion and a second. We can all vote to receive this, and again, your team does a tremendous job, and we appreciate all the hard work and
They do.
thank you. All right. So our next one is we have a public hearing regarding the adoption amendments of the County Ventura Entitlement Area.
Good morning, Supervisor Foy, members of the board, Christy Madden, County Executive Office. We are requesting that we continue this hearing to next week at 11 a.m.
Move the recommended action.
You are good. I like that. Thank you. That's quick, quiet, boom. That's easy for us to understand.
Simple.
as you said.
Sat here for an hour.
Okay. One more vote. Somebody got a vote. He's just trying to delay it. Now we got the man, the myth, the legend coming down to tell us something. Public hearing regarding the adoption of 2018-21 memorandum of agreement with the Ventura County Sheriff's Deputy Association. Sir. This
Good
will
morning,
be a-
Chair Foy, members of the board, CEO Mike Powers. My name is Sean Otten, your HR Director, and today I'm here before you to recommend the adoption of the 2018-21 Memorandum of Agreement between the County of Ventura and Ventura County Deputy Sheriff Associations, the VCD.
Sean, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing, let you go. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. No, keep
Didn't
going.
let you finish.
This is me.
The second public hearing is scheduled for May 15th, 2018. The proposed MOA will become effective May 15th upon your approval, with a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021. The proposed salary and benefit increases, as approved, will have no material impact on the funded status of the retirement plan. The average increase per year and the average for the overall is calculated at 2.5%, which is lower than the retirement system's actuarially assumed 3.5%. The main features of the MOA, the salary and benefit features, are a 1.5% general salary increase each May of the 3-year term, $50 per pay period flexible credit allowance increases in each May of the first 2 years of the contract, and a 60-year per pay period increase in the 3rd year. An increase to the clothing maintenance allowance of $53 in May of 2018, May 6th, and an increase to the clothing allowance of $178 effective May 5th of 2019. So that's 2-year increases. Educational incentive pay increases of $5 and $10 per pay period increases for each of the 3 years for employees holding the police officer standard training certificate, the post certificate, intermediate and advanced levels for the $5 and $10 respectively. And then a revision of the disability income protection plan provision in the MOA to reflect an increase from $11.54 to $15.23 per pay period in the county contributions towards premium payments of the long-term disability. There are some other cleanup provisions in the MOA that are non-financial. we should note that the VCDSA membership ratified this agreement yesterday, so that's excellent news. I would like to thank, in closing, your leadership and support in our negotiations throughout. Mr. Powers, CEO Powers' strategy and wisdom, as always, and the county bargaining team's professionalism. I very much appreciate that. And finally, I'd like to really put my heartfelt thanks to Scott Peterson and Casey Soroti and the entire VCDSA bargaining team for their professionalism. We have, as you know, a great deal of respect for them and the service that they provide to the county. With that, I'm prepared to take any questions that you have.
Do we have any board questions? Just probably compliments. Thank you for everybody and all you got accomplished, and it's great to see this moving forward. Do we have any public speakers at all on this? No? And then, Supervisor, you have a
Yeah,
comment?
just appreciate the cooperation and move the approval.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, then if we have no speakers, we'll close the public hearing, and we have a motion and a second. I'll vote. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. All right, you sure you want to go to this next group of people? It says you have an hour. No? Perfect. That's collectively, I like it. All right, thank you. And so if you guys want to, if you want to explain here to Supervisor Bennett, myself, how expensive it is to fly those helicopters, you can do that too, yeah.
I'm afraid we're unable to explain that, but good morning, Chair Foy, members of the board, CEO Powers. For the record, my name is Jorge Rubio, Deputy Director of Airports for the County of Ventura. And I just wanted to start by thanking our staff. We have some of them with us, Jamal Gazaleh and Aaron Powers. They have helped us put the budget together for the Department of Airports.
Sure.
I just wanted to start by saying that we are an enterprise fund, so we don't collect any tax revenue or take any revenue from the general fund. And according to our numbers, which you will see shortly, we're doing really well. And this is my first time operating this one, so bear with me. Okay. I wanted to provide you with some budget highlights. For example, the first one being that the Department of Airports has a sustainable cash flow of $900,000, and that's the net operating income. So that's the money that will be going in the bank at the end of the year, the projected budget. The projected cash balance at the end of the year will be approximately $13 million. The total decrease in revenue due to the termination of vehicle storage at both airports is having an impact on that. And you may have seen on the...
What is the amount of that decrease? You said total decrease in revenue due to termination. What is the amount of that decrease in revenue?
So the amount of the decrease, if you look at last year's revenue, it was $903,000. That's how much we budgeted, and that's a similar amount that we're not going to see this year. The vehicle storage, actually, since...
I'm sorry, I just didn't understand that. How much is the revenue going down?
It's going down about $903,000 from the storage of vehicles, but there is an offset actually because we're doing really well with our property management. And if you see the line there, the last under bullet point, there's an increase in property and investment revenue of $459,000, and that's why we're only going to see a decrease of the difference basically between the $459,000 and the $900,000.
But Jorge, the majority of the decrease is because of the out-of-bill storage.
Correct.
It's
the temporary storage of vehicls.
They were using Oxnard and Camarillo Airport Authority. Now they're no longer going to be there.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's also increasing services and supplies. We like to take care of our buildings and also the hangars that we have at both airports. So we are meeting building safety code requirements where each building needs now a permit, and we need certified welders to work in our hangars. And we're budgeting accordingly so that we can hire those welders, and we're putting aside $100,000 to do that. The next item, business park improvements in the amount of $200,000. That's actually because we have a very good business park at Camarillo Airport, But the space that we have, the office space, I wouldn't say it's substandard, but we're making improvements in order to bring it to another rental class level, which will provide us with additional monies in the future. So we have $200,000 there. For labor expense, we have an increase for both airports of about $458,000. That's an increase of 16.1%. And that's due to, actually not to new positions, but that's due to us allocating the payment, the salary of $154,000 to two maintenance workers who were being paid by workers' compensation. So that's hitting our books again, and that's a portion of it. Some other changes actually include group insurance. I think there was an increase on the overall county for that. The cost of living expenses, which is not substantial, but it still affected the budget, and the workers' compensation insurance rates that went up, and that's a total of about $117,000 for us. The retirement costs, again, it's going up $61,000, mostly due to the two maintenance positions, the salary increases for the rest of the department based on merit, and also, least but not last, the airport operations officer salary increases of $91,000. Last year, we were paying, we are still paying safety retirement to our operations officers, and what happened is through negotiations with a union, should we give up the commercial airport certificate at Oxnard? We were looking to seeing some savings there, but this year it's hitting the books because the way that human resources and labor relations look at this is they have to be paid for the overall compensation, so that's actually increasing their salary, and even though it's reducing their safety retirement, it's increasing their salary by about 17%.
Chair Rubio, that was just at Oxnard, right?
That is just at Oxnard.
Right.
But keep in mind that the staff that works at Oxnard are also from Camarillo, so it affects both airports in a sense.
And now in Oxnard, in the safety part of it, Oxnard is taking over, right?
We're still in negotiations with the City of Oxnard, the fire department, and we'll see where we end up.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. So I'm trying to be brief, but if you have any questions, feel free to stop me.
Just, make sure you get whatever you want to say in.
Okay. Time. Thank you. So some of the challenges that we face, obviously, we are trying to still restore airline service at Oxnard, but we have been without air service since 2010. And a few years ago, we applied for a small community air service development grant from the Department of Transportation, and that was for about $500,000. The grant expired. We were able to get an extension because we received a letter of support from an airline last year. The grant extension also expired, and we haven't had any takers. So we're looking at surrendering the commercial airport certificate to the FAA, but that would still allow us to bring a scheduled aircraft service with less than 9 seats. And if an airline really wanted to come over and serve the community, it's basically a paper exercise with the FAA that we would do. And it's something, we still maintain the airport at the same standards, basically.
Mr. Chair, Rubio, that's been a very popular demand, people wanting service from Oxnard to LAX and Oxnard to Vegas. Even though we don't have any takers now, we can bring it up rapidly, as you said, if an airline comes in. Is that?
That is correct, Supervisor.
Yeah. I just want to share that for the public because I've been asked many times, what happened to our airline and are we going to revive it and so forth.
So do we have anything happening with the 9 seats and less at all? I mean, you got Surf Air, you got all these other ones that are out there. Are they looking at Camarillo or Oxnard as
we have spoken with Surf Air. We've brought over a few other companies to come over. And one of the disadvantages that we have, from what I can tell you, is the distance between LAX to our airport, the distance between Burbank to our airport, and between Santa Barbara and our airport. So
they're
we're
just
in
too
this
close.
Perfect triangle, exactly.
Yeah, they're just too
and
close.
we are the smallest airport.
That's right.
So there's just not enough population to serve that, or else they just say it's easier to have people drive locally.
Yeah. That's the concern of the airlines, but What I can tell you is that if, for example, an airline was to serve, and if it is one of the major air carriers, I'm pretty sure the community would support it. It's just that we don't have any historic data from Oxnard to any real destinations, meaning away from LAX going to Las Vegas, San Francisco.
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you.
Another challenge that we have are actually the pressures on general aviation, the aging pilot population. Most of our tenants are hitting that age when they're losing their medical certificates, and it's hard for us to get new blood to replace them. And another one is the FAA 1,500-hour rule back in the day, and this affects us with Oxnard as well. Before, if you were a pilot and you wanted to fly for the airline's left seat, meaning as first officer, you only needed 250 hours. Right now, you need 1,500 hours in order to do that. And anybody who's considering a career as a pilot, they are looking at how much it's going to cost them and how long it's going to take them to be there. So it is something that I know the FAA and, for example, the American Association of Airport Executives and other trade organizations are trying to work on. We don't have a resolution yet. Avgas alternatives, aviation gas is one of the only fuels that has lead in it now, and I know that there's pressures to try to change that. There's a few companies that are working on providing the new type of fuel, but that's not yet available still. Now we get into the loss of auto storage at Oxnard Airport again. We have the port as a partner. We have the auto storage company, Glovis, as a partner in trying to meet their distribution goals. And they decided to scale back and move back to the port, where they actually lease, at the Navy base, they lease about 90 acres. And that is impacting our budget. And since December, actually, of 2014, we've seen our revenue go up by $4.95 million, which is substantial. And what I can tell you is it's timely because we have bigger projects to accomplish, including the Northeast Hangar development. And again, the changes to building and safety standards for hangar repair work, which I touched on before.
And can I just point out, for the lost auto storage, we welcome them to come back, at any time that they feel they need an influx and so forth. But we understand that they need to go, that the reasons why they're going to the port. So I just want to make sure we're not closing it out. It's just, it was their choice.
Correct. Thank you. Under performance measures, this is in working with the CEO's office and our department. We try to identify areas on which we can improve and on which we can actually serve better the community. One of these things are the FAA inspections and the corrective actions actually identified by the FAA. For the year 2016-17, you can see that we have zero corrective actions. For 2017-18, even though the number is 10, they were minor, and actually when the inspector showed up, most of them were corrected on the spot. We had a new inspector, so we had to get used to as to what he was looking for. And for the following year, we expect, again, zero. Noise complaints, this is where we actually see how the communities around the airports see us. We budget about 30 noise complaints per airport per year. And in 2016-17, you can see that we had 19 for Oxnard and 12 complaints for Camarillo Airport. Other airports are in the thousands. So we do really well in this regard. Vehicle pedestrian deviations. This is actually about vehicles driving onto an area that is controlled by the control tower. It's a movement area. And vehicles that are not supposed to be there, they get an infraction, they get a notice to appear. In a way, they would get the airport in trouble with the FAA because there's an investigation that occurs. A few years ago, we started a driver training program, an annual driver training program, because we saw an increase in these vehicle pedestrian deviation incidents. And as of this year, we only have one, and we expect we have that number as zero because that is our end goal, to have it as zero. Now, into the fun stuff. This is our cash flow projection, basically. What I would direct your attention to is the highlighted areas in yellow. We are looking to start the year at an estimated $16 million budget, in the banks, and in the bank, I'm sorry, and then we're going to be spending it down due to the projects that we have, and I'll explain those projects later, down to $13 million at the end of the fiscal year. And throughout the years, you're going to see that under the year 22-23, we're still at $9.9 million after we do all these projects, including the Northeast Hangar development and other projects to improve the airfield. Our operating budget for the year 18-19, we're looking at appropriations under salaries and benefits. Again, we're touching that bullet point that I talked about before, where we're requesting an annual budget of $3.3 million, and that's an increase of $458,000 from last year, or 16%. And under services and supplies, again, we're requesting a 2.2 basically $million budget, and that's an increase of 11.7%, or $229,000, and that's again to improve the services in the business park, to improve the office space that we have there. The other item that I got you to is the total appropriations. So the total appropriations for this upcoming year are going to be $7.8 million, which are basically an increase of 10% over last year, or $706,000. Under revenue, though, if you take a look at the licenses, permits, and franchise, you're going to see that a decrease in revenue is shown there of $916,000 over the previous year. Supervisor Bennett, this is actually the number that you were looking for before, and under how much revenue we're losing from the car company. Under revenue use of money and property, you're going to see an increase of $459,000. That's due to several rates increases based on market rate, and also due to the fact that, as you may remember, last year your board approved the hiring of a lease manager for the Department of Airports, and Madeline Hurley is the person who holds that title now, and she's doing a fantastic job. So that number is reflected there. Yes.
I think it's important that we understand why we hired that lease. By the way, I belong to the Airport Authority as well as Cali Long. It's because of all the new development we're building there at the airport, both Oxnard and Ventura. So we need a lease manager, to take care of those items, for us.
Correct. We have about 80 commercial leases that she's helping us manage.
And right now we're looking at changing our contracts, our lease contracts, and so forth. So we need you guys are professional, somebody that knows about leases in the real estate business. So I think that was an important choice that we made there.
Yes, we're very proud to have her, and she has the knowledge and expertise to help us negotiate a better deal for the county in that regard.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. But the total revenue for both airports is at $6.5 million. Again, there's a decrease, but there's an increase in property revenue. The decrease, overall decrease, is only 6.6%, if you consider that all of the vehicles left the airports. So the net cost, including depreciation, is $1.2 million, 1.28, and the net cost with depreciation, basically the net income, the amount that's going into the bank, is $900,000 for both airports. This slide here just shows you the revenue by different parts of the airports, I would say. Where you have the non-aviation, that's actually the business park revenue. They contribute to the airport with about 34% of the revenue. ASP, those are the commercial leases that sell fuel, provide services to the pilots and aviation businesses. They contribute about $1.2 million, or 19%. But if you look at the ASPs and miscellaneous aviation, together they're contributing a little over 30%, and that's kind of where we would like to have it. Miscellaneous aviation actually involves all of the other businesses that are not full-service commercial operators. So I don't know if you're familiar with Camarillo, but for example, this would include the museum. This would also include the Bill Burr hangars on the east end of the airport, Casamba. These are the type of businesses that are under miscellaneous aviation. terminal, the terminal business at Oxnard, they contributed with about 4% of the revenue to the system, with about $237,000. And this is due to the rental car companies that are there. This is not due to an airline. Most of the companies actually consolidated to the airport, and that's where we are. Hangars and tie downs, they contribute about 22%, and general aviation fees 5%. And these are typically landing fees and overnight fees for aircraft that use the airport. The revenue and expense trend slide, what it shows is basically the line on top shows our revenues since 2009, 2010. And the line in the bottom shows our expenses. You will notice that we try to always have more revenue than expenses. And you will notice that in about 2014, we actually started budgeting a little bit more for revenue because of the cars that we were getting parked at the airport. And that's why you see that huge increment. But overall, going back to 18, 19, that number goes down because the cars are leaving. And that's basically what I wanted to show you. Combined airport appropriations for 2018-19, this is a number without depreciation because depreciation is not really a cash expense. We are a service organization, obviously, so under salaries and benefits, we're at 59%, and I think the county's was 60 overall, so we're doing great here. Under services and supplies, we spend about 39% of our appropriations there, just making sure that all of our tenants, users, and customers get the services that they are looking for. And under other charges, it's only 2%. On this slide, I just wanted to point out basically the total appropriations for Camarillo are $5.1 million. And the total revenue for Camarillo is $5.2 million. Camarillo, being a larger airport, as having the business park over there, it actually provides to the system about $1.2 million per year of revenue. And that's the line shown as net cost without depreciation. For Oxnard, the story is a little different here, but under total appropriations, you can see that the appropriations are at $2.6 million. The total revenue is at $1.269 million. And there's a slight revenue decrease due to the cars also here, but also because we had to negotiate a lease with one of our tenants, Golden West. We're sitting a little bit less of rent, but that was due so they could stay for a longer period and for them to take over the maintenance of the fuel farm and the whole maintenance of the building, including structural, which is typically not included in our leases that when we own the facility, when we own the hangar.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
This airport is, we subsidized for a long, long time. And without an airline, is there any chance that this is going to even get to a break-even position?
Well, we are actively working on it. We had our budget workshop on March the 15th, and we actually asked for ideas as to what the attendees would be able to come up with. And we have a parcel over there that's a 5-acre parcel that we're looking to develop. And believe it or not, we're actually in conversations with some potential takers. So there's an opportunity maybe that we can turn this airport around and be profitable.
Is that a one-time to sell the property or one-time to build something, lease it, and have an income stream?
No, it's actually the second one. It's to lease the property and maybe get into a public-private partnership in order to develop the land and just create a little bit of a better attraction for more tenants to come in.
Because this airport has open hangars, right?
No, it doesn't.
Is it full now?
It is full. Back in 2010, when we were seeing some of the effects of the recession, there were a few hangars that were vacant, but we actually have a waiting list of.
You got a waiting list there too? Okay, good.
But Mr. Chair, one of the things that's important about Oxnard Airport is that Oxnard assists Camarillo to kind of work together. If they have an overflow of airplanes, Oxnard is there to take care of it. And also if there's any repairs at Camarillo, Oxnard is there. In fact, we're going to have a big runway. It's going to be repaired here soon that we're going to need airport for the planes to land. and also it serves as a surplus, you know. Well, actually, they work together, Camarillo and Oxnard.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I just think I'm glad to hear they're looking for ideas to figure out how
Yes.
to
Right, and
to find other revenue sources on that airport.
And that's been the
key,
concern of
yeah.
the Airport Authority Board, that we find other revenue sources, you know, for Oxnard.
Right, and to build that experience at the Oxnard Airport. Everyone says the Camarillo Airport, it's got the Waypoint Cafe, it's got all these
That's
experience
right.
for the pilots. So what is the experience that you can get at the Oxnard? How can we build that up? And so we're looking at different avenues in which we can do that.
And one of the things, too, that we have there is the auto rentals, you know, that helped us out quite a bit, you know, at Oxnard Airport. So you don't have to drive all over the town, you know, you can go right there, rent a car, and take it right back, and so forth. So there's, we are looking for revenues to increase in Oxnard.
The other thing that I wanted to mention at Oxnard is that we have hangars 2 and 3, and they're slated for redevelopment. So we're looking to do an RFP for that in the near future. Those are hangars that are older, since the 1940s, and we're probably looking at just having a developer come in and rebuild them into something that's more modern, and will be able to attract more modern tenant with modern fleet.
Great, thanks.
Okay, now into the annual operations. We're going back 10 years, and what you can see is the bigger number is for Camarillo. An operation is a takeoff or a landing. So at Camarillo, for the year 2018, we're looking at close to about 160,000 operations per year. And we foresee that for the following year, it's going to be something similar. They've been going up. And then for Oxnard Airport, even though you may see that it has probably half the operations of Camarillo at 78,000 operations per year, actually, this is a really good number when you look at and compare it to other airports in the nation. So operations are healthy. Capital projects. When we look at capital projects, basically what you're looking at is fixed assets, and that's the number that says $2.8 million. And there's that huge difference, 73%, 73.9%, and that's because we actually didn't, the previous year we were hoping to spend some money on the northeast hangar development, so that number is properly reflected here. And since we're talking about capital, that those numbers are big. But under intergovernmental revenue, the figure at the bottom, $1.8 million, that is the figure that we're getting from the either from the FAA or the California Department of Transportation to help us with the match to help us with these projects. And in the next slide, I'll show you which projects I'm talking about. So under capital projects grant funded, when I said funded, that means that we're getting either 90 or 95% from the federal government. For Camarillo Airport, we're looking at an airport layout plan update, which is a document actually that the FAA uses to do any projects, or actually to allow the airport to continue to be funded by them. And this includes a GIS portion of it. What we're also working about is on a 30% preliminary runway and taxiway design. Supervisor Zaragoza, this is one of the projects that you were mentioning earlier. We're looking to do a reconstruction of the runway at Camarillo probably in the year 2022, 2023, and we're planning for it right now, and we're going between both airports trying to make sure that at least one remains open. And with the same thing, you have the NEPA environmental review of the runway and taxiway reconstruction, which is part of the same project. For Oxnard, under capital projects funded, again, we have the NEPA. We're trying to work a categorical exclusion for the runway and taxiway reconstruction, and that's scheduled to take place in the year 2020. Capital projects non-grant funded, that means the funds that we have in hand, those are the funds that we're using for this project. We are doing the airport beacon replacement. This is something that needs to be replaced. The airport beacon at Camarillo Airport was actually rehabbed about 15 years ago, and it's met its useful life, and it's about time to replace it with something more modern. We're looking to upgrade or replace the airfield security camera system at Camarillo Airport, and the following year we're trying to do the same thing at Oxnard. We're working on the business park strategic plan. Again, Madeline Hurley is the one who's helping us with this since she has some experience in the business. The business park internet infrastructure. We are working with our own IT service department, and they lease a building from Camarillo Airport, and they requested to extend a fiber line to their building, which has been approved. And right now we are trying to actually have that line go between some of our buildings so that we can tap into it should we need it in the future in order to attract more tenants to come in, and that would be the high-tech tenants that want to use the airport. Because let me tell you, we've had we haven't been able to provide the service before, and some potential tenants have left. We're also working on various roof replacements. We're also doing some HVAC replacements at one of the main buildings at Camarillo Airport, and we're doing a parking area reconstruction under capital projects non-grant funded for Camarillo. At Oxnard, we have a taxiway midfield rehabilitation at the west end. We are rehabilitating the north fence or stabilizing the north fence area. We have a project there because there's a lot of water drainage that's damaging the fence, we believe, so we want to address it. And we're actually we'll be slurry sealing Patterson Road, which is one of the main entrances to the airport. And the last one, roads and lighting. Again, this is something for the Camarillo Airport. In the business park, we have several property owners. When you talk about Camarillo Airport, not everything is owned by the Department of Airports. We have also the fire department, several school districts, theaters, you name it. So it's about eight owners, and what we have is we have contracts in the amount of about $38,000 to maintain, for example, the business park, such as tree trimming, the lighting that occurs there. But we also do some capital work, and the capital work that we're looking to spend this time around is $67,300. And that is actually to rehabilitate Post Street and Willis Avenue East, and that's a slurry project. And everybody pays into it. We just manage the projects for them. So in a nutshell, that's the budget that we have, and unless you have any questions.
Jorge, I just want to say thank you to the whole team who's really given us a great view of what's going on with airports. I think that the remodeling and doing the slurries and taking care of the runways is really going to help and provide more benefits to our pilot and our hangar owners. One thing we didn't mention, it's not part of the budget, but we do look at the environment that's going on around our airports. We have been provided proposals for putting a senior center in a flight zone area by the Oxnard. Also, we've been told that some of the schools that might be put into the farmland areas that are right next to the Oxnard Airport. I just wanted to make sure that that's on everyone's radars as we talk about pesticides and safety of our community and so forth. That the board for the airports has stated that they do not agree on those locations, but just to make sure people were aware of it.
Yes. What I can mention regarding that is that we have the comprehensive land use plan for Ventura County airports, and we try to follow the recommendation, and that's typically the way that we go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate the time and all the effort put in. Thank you very much.
So
All right.
I'll motion to approve
well,
and
let's see.
receive and file.
We
Or
got-
do we do
no,
all three of
We're
them
going to do
at
all
once?
once.
Great.
So we're going to move to our public defender. Here he comes.
Chair Foy, members of the board, Mr. Berg, Mr. Smith. Good morning. I'm, for the record, and CEO Powers, I'm Todd Howarth, the public defender. You know, I thought actually today was going to be my debut as the public defender, but as it, and you know, when I was listening to Judge Hintz, I was kind of thinking it would be like that. He's sort of got this sort of professional, you know, gravitas, this dignity. You know, I was thinking back on January the 23rd, which was actually my debut before you. I didn't really expect it to happen like that, and I was probably more surprised than anyone that my debut before you was as part of a sort of slow-moving conga line that kind of came up here to accept the Golden Sneaker Award. And
there it is.
yeah, there it is. And perhaps it doesn't really reflect very well on me. I will admit that as it was sort of coming down the row, I sort of looked down, hoping it might pass me by. And Johnson Gill and David Stasek were both there, and it just took a long time. I finally had to kind of look up, and there they were at the end of my row, and both of them were kind of doing this number. So I got behind, we moved down here, and perhaps it was an apt metaphor, if you will, for county government, and I'm going to not name names to protect the innocent, but I do believe I saw a couple of supervisors, also in slow motion, in a good-natured way, perhaps moving a couple elbows to get to the podium first. I'm not going to say who that was. So I'm here today to talk about the Public Defender's Office, to update you and tell you a little bit about what has been going on in our office. We have, as you may know, probably one of the best public defender offices in the state. We are in 3 different offices, and before I begin to give you the update, I first just wanted to thank the board, CEO Powers, also Frank Chow, our budget analyst, but because of your continued support, we're able to continue our mission to protect and ensure the safety, and I do say safety, of those that are charged with crimes, to ensure equal justice for all. In these 3 buildings, we have employees at the main courthouse in the middle, and also at the juvenile court building, the JJC, and the Union Bank building. And in the Union Bank building, in a couple of weeks, I believe the board will receive a request. The CEO may be recommending that we get to expand in the UBB building. We're going to, we've kind of outgrown our present space, and we are eventually going to hopefully add about 7 more offices and office space, because a lot of our attorneys were basically in a position where they had to interview clients in other people's offices, and they had to double up, and we didn't really have confidential space. So I wanted to thank the CEO and the CEO's office for that recommendation. So I'm here to talk, besides updating you a little bit about our office, and I was thinking about the whole golden sneakers thing, and at first I guess I was a little embarrassed by it, but the way we received it, but ultimately I felt that the way you all reacted to it, I feel like I'm in good company. And ultimately, when I think back on that day, it's a little bit of a metaphor for what I'm going to tell you, which is I'm not surprised in this era of sort of data-driven, evidence-based practices that if you wire up some of our staff, you are going to find that we are an exceedingly lean organization. And we had, of course, there were 5 members of our clerical staff. There were like 15 in the office. 5 of them were the ones that were behind this. But I do think it's a metaphor that applies as we think about the challenges that we all face. I want to just touch on 3 of those main challenges and kind of go over those with you to kind of update the board on some of the things our office is facing in the next fiscal period. So bail reform, police camera evidence, and AB 109. And as you all know, back in 2011 with realignment, there has been this sort of dizzying array of laws that have passed where we're essentially shifting the burden of administrating the criminal justice system from the state level to the local level. So you know these numbers, but Prop 36 was when we had the 3 strikes law that was amended. Prop 47 was a massive overhaul of the criminal justice system such that we decriminalized a lot of the cases that I used to handle. Felonies, drug possession cases are now misdemeanors. Proposition 57, as you know, contemplates allowing folks to actually show by their good behavior that they may merit an early release based on a parole board's review. And then I wanted to touch just a little bit on a couple of the other laws that have passed that have challenged our office, however lean we are. Franklin and transfer hearings, I don't know if you've heard about those, but essentially I always think of you insure your teenage son and you realize the rate is actually way out of whack. And it turns out that the insurance agents all knew something that science has come to terms with in the criminal justice system, which is folks that are under the age, especially young men of 25, their brains are not exactly completely developed, and they lack maturity and judgment. And ultimately, what happened is that the state changed some of the parole rules, and they placed other burdens upon our office to essentially go and develop information about maturity and responsibility, about right from wrong, about abuse that might underlie offending behavior such that a judge should know about it, and also a parole board should know about it. So those are known as transfer hearings, and then Franklin talks about the folks that are in prison that ultimately are in a position that they may be subject to parole, but they haven't really been able to show that they might have been affected by some of these factors. And so it may be incumbent upon public defender offices to develop these sort of time capsules, which are inordinately time consumptive. You have to go back and collect records and establish whether or not a person was compromised prior to the age of 25. So as science moves on, we learn more and more, but the point is that under the realignment laws from 2011, as we shift to the local level, more and more obligation, responsibility is passed on to public safety, the sheriff, the district attorney, and especially the public defender's office. Proposition 63 passed recently, and perhaps all of you know about that, but I think there's about 40 misdemeanors that are impacted, and all of the felonies, basically you can't have a gun if you're convicted for certain periods of time for certain crimes. And now there's a new procedure in court that sort of doubles the time that we would originally appear when somebody pleads guilty to a crime. It could be an assault crime, for example. The judge now has the obligation to ensure that if they have access to firearms, that there's basically a process to surrender those to the authorities such that you won't end up getting in trouble and we can get guns off the street. But it necessitates coming back for another subsequent court appearance, and we actually have a court now in courtroom 10 where these kinds of hearings are being conducted. Proposition 64, as you know, again, there's this movement to sort of move away from the era of mass incarceration and supervision in favor of non-jail alternatives to unburden our residents from the albatross of extreme or fines and fees. And the idea behind that is that perhaps if we take a grander or a broader view, we may be able to remove some of the impediments to good citizenship by not burdening folks with these kinds of convictions, one of which are these marijuana convictions. So it's incumbent on our office to look through and find clients that we have that have pled guilty to marijuana convictions and assist them to the extent we can do so within the meaning of the law to expunge those convictions so we can get them back to work, get them into legitimate housing, and also help them in terms of education. All of those things are barriers to a lot of our residents who are good people who just made a mistake. So those are some of the main topics. So let me go over that for you in a little bit more detail because I think it's of some moment as we look to the future. We've all heard a lot about bail reform, and I wanted to spend a few moments sort of updating you about some of the things about bail reform. So This is a typical courtroom. This is courtroom 11. I count that there are 5 attorneys, 2 interpreters. You got a room full of loved ones, families, friends, maybe out of custody folks. The judge is many times in this courtroom, as well as some of the other arraignment courtrooms, is making decisions about whether to release somebody into the community while they await to adjudicate their case. And I don't know if you know, but up and down the state, about 60% of everybody that's in our jail is awaiting adjudication. And folks have been looking at this problem for many years, and I think everybody knows in this room that if you have money, you get out. If you don't have money, you stay in. And so one of the things that happened back in October, Judge Back, who all of you may know, recently retired, but he was one of the authors. There were about, I think, 11 judges and 1 CEO that participated in the request by the Justice of the Supreme Court, California Supreme Court, to do an analysis of the bail system. It's a wonderful report. I urge everyone to look at it sometime, but the conclusion surprised to no one. The money bail system is unsafe and unfair. And this is I like this photograph because you've got 2 probation colleagues of mine. You've got Terry Hart and Michelle Larson, and they are both folks that have been tasked with trying to create and administer our pretrial detention release program. And many of you have heard about that. This is just a brief overview. But on your left, you can see this risk needs assessment. You've probably heard about those things. It's basically got 7 questions. And what you do is, instead of simply saying that we're going to go with the bail schedule, this actually moves towards an individual assessment about the person under the judge is considering to release or not, and whether they can manage that person successfully on the out, in this community. And what a judge will do is ask the probation department to prepare this risk assessment. It doesn't take a real long period of time, and you add that together with other information to inform the judge about the risk. So what you're doing is you're evaluating this profile and putting a risk assessment on how likely it is the person is going to suffer pretrial failure, which is basically they don't show up at the next court appearance or they commit a new crime. I want to tell you, for those of you that don't know, the program is now in its 5th year. It feels a little, silly calling it a pilot program. I mean, we've been doing it for quite some time now. The first 3 years of the program, the probation department produced some statistics to show us about whether the investment by the CCP merited continuing on this program. And I'm a defense lawyer. I'm in favor of bail reform, but it was very, very successful program. But we limited it to just these AB 109 cases, these low-level felonies, and that was by design to see how it would work, and we, of course, wanted to move cautiously. But the program produced some very impressive results. 83%, as you can see, appeared for court, 90% remained arrest-free, and during the continuation of this program at the 4-year mark, very similar statistical numbers were produced by the probation department. And then, I'm well aware when people throw numbers up, we talk about soft savings. If you say jail costs $139, it doesn't cost anything. Doesn't really save Jeff Dean, our sheriff, any money if you just have one person released. But we're talking about, over the period of the time of this program, 31,084 jail days. Folks were out in the community providing their own housing and their own food, and they were managed safely. They did return to answer to the court when summoned back. And it was a program that I think, although it's not just the economic cost that I think is important here, I think that is of some consideration. And so the point is that the pretrial detention service program has been very, very successful. And in our office, the Public Defender's Office, we have been advocating to work with our justice partners to try to expand this very worthwhile program. So we talked about bail reform. Last year, SB 10 came into existence, and there was a lot of enthusiasm about it, but and a lot of folks were waiting to see whether or not the legislature would come up for a fix to a system that we all knew was broken. And eventually it kind of stalled out because folks were trying to figure out how do you pay for it. A lot of the counties up and down the state were not as fortunate as our county. They hadn't started a pretrial detention program, and the thought of the state imposing this obligation on individual counties, well, frankly, it does cost money to do this the right way. I put up here, and I think you have a handout of what this would be, and again, these are things that are proposed legislative findings in the bill. I don't believe there's anybody that disagrees with them. You know that money bail is something that sorts people based on the amount of money that they have. In my experience as a public defender, I started in 1984. I've done, I can't tell you, countless number of bail hearings. I don't remember one time anybody was given a no bail hold where they just wouldn't set any amount of money. It's very limited in the California Constitution when you can do that. Instead, what would happen is these bail hearings were set by schedule. $50,000 is like the normal amount. I'm not sure my wife would bail me out at $50,000. I'm not sure, but ultimately at $50,000, most of my clients in the public defender's office that are indigent, of course, can't pay that amount. It's an unaffordable bail. And for all of the reasons that are stated up on the board, we're still kind of waiting for SB 10 to work its way through the California legislature, and it's my hope that they'll come up with a legislative fix. But in the interim, our office is continuing to advocate to expand this very worthwhile program, and probation has done a fantastic job of working with the courts, getting the information they need to be comfortable with making decisions that time and time again merit the fact that we took a risk on some of our residents and we got return on that risk.
Could I ask a question?
Of course.
On your last slide, I was looking at, certainly it is an equity issue, and I support that effort, but that you had one point on here that it does not improve the rates of appearance. Well, if you're stuck in jail, isn't it 100% likely you're going to appear?
That's absolutely true, but I guess the question would be at what cost? At $139 a day, and the question is, can you manage risk in a way that is going to ultimately benefit the community? And it turns out, if you're talking about 90% likely if you're in this program, I don't know if you know what they do for the program, but mostly what they do for about 10 weeks or so is the probation department will call to remind people to come to court. And my experience is most of our clients that are poor have problems with transportation with their families. And it's not that they're a flight risk, but you can get a failure to appear if you miss the bus and come late. Mm-hmm. So in answering your question, I believe that when Judge Back and his other brethren looked at the bail system, they determined that the bail system, it turns out, is not a good way to ensure appearances. Because really what you're doing is setting an unaffordable bail for folks that really can't get out. And yeah, they'll show up, but if that's the cost. But
okay, so I just want to clarify that one point, because it does seem like you'd have a 100% chance of them appearing if they're stuck in jail. But the other question is that other 13%, I think it was 87%, do come back for their court hearing. How do we address the 13% that don't come back?
Well, it like the same way we address it, and I just wanted to say it's slight, but I believe probation answered your question by doing a statistical analysis, and it was my understanding that their percentages beat the bail system like 3 to 5%. It wasn't enormous, but it was better than what you get if you simply have the bail system.
So we essentially go out there and get them.
Yeah,
bring
that's
them
true.
In. Right,
that's true.
Right. Which is another cost, that we have. But I absolutely understand the fact that having a system where rich people don't have to stay in jail while they wait for their hearing, and poor people do, is not equitable. So I certainly understand that, but I just was looking at the numbers and trying to figure out how it works. Thanks.
Of course. And then what I was going to go on to explain is while we were sort of like a couple days after I did the little conga line down here to accept the Golden Sneaker Award, they came out with this landmark case called Humphrey. You probably heard about that. I believe the CFO mentioned that I might touch on it today with you. That was a decision where the the question about bail has been raised a number of times, and finally a court of appeal made a decision, and I believe that the California Supreme Court has until May 24th to decide whether or not to take it up. It's their discretion. A lot of folks think they're not going to, but we'll have to wait and see. But at the moment, it is good law. And it did two things. The crowded bail hearings were convenient for the system to a certain extent because it happened in a moment. I mean, I did a bail hearing, it takes 5 minutes, because lots of times they'll talk about a person and the charges, and a judge will default to the bail schedule, and they don't have to give a reason why they don't vary. So the Humphrey case came down, and they basically said that, much like Judge Back and the report from October of last year, that the problem with the bail schedule is that you're not looking at people individually and deciding risk. You're doing it based on generalities, and people have a right to pre-trial liberty. And you have to now, under the law, which is a huge change. It's hard to convey what that means to everybody, but it really was. We all sat there thinking we were lean before all these realignment laws came down. How are we going to respond so that we can pay homage to the fact that the law has changed, and it's our burden and our obligation and privilege to help folks that don't have money bring their individual case before the judge. So now a judge has to first decide a person's ability to pay, and a lot of clients can't pay bail. And then next they have to consider non-jail alternatives. Like, is it possible that the community could be safe if this person was on home on electronic monitoring or was in a sober living house? In fact, I read just the other day that Mr. Humphrey himself got a new hearing, and on Thursday the judge decided to release him on EM into like a sober living home, citizen's home. The guy was quite old at the time. Even though it was a 3 strikes case, I think there was $5 missing, and although it certainly was alleged as a crime of violence, there was no physical violence in the case. But the point is that Mr. Humphrey is very shortly going to be released, and the judge made a decision that the community can be safe, and he will continue to make his court appearances, and he is going to be released, I think, in the next week or so. But one of the repercussions of this is, and I don't want to take too much time, but what happened is that we all appear as public defenders and defense lawyers to make a bail argument. Now it's almost close to, and we have now the right to do, according to the case, a full adversarial hearing on the question of bail. And it's resulted in a huge uptick in the number of pretrial reports. The judge now used to only do it, I don't know if you remember on that last slide, it just said 1 out of 10 felonies, and to me there's 2,000, 3,000 felonies filed in a year, so we were only doing like 1 out of every 10. Now the judge wants, to comply with this case, he or she has to, they have to now ask the pretrial detention services to do a report. A lot of the reports aren't ready when we first appear in court on those arraignment days, so the case gets continued over. Continuances, of course, are not good for anyone as we keep coming back to court to re-argue and talk about bail. And I understand from the probation department some of the screenings have gone down somewhat, but they still are dramatically up from what they were. Humphrey applies to misdemeanor cases as well. So far, we don't do pretrial detention services for misdemeanors. So I'm here to tell you that this is all very new. In terms of being a lean organization, I kind of joke with the managers. I've learned after you appointed me the public defender that our bench is not that deep. We spent quite a bit of time trying to get a management team in place, and I'm happy to report I have some amazing managers helping me. Some are present in court today. And we've been working with the CEO's office, Paul Stamper and Dr. Linares, to help us formulate a strategic plan so that we can wisely and efficiently use our resources in the coming years ahead to try to meet some of these challenges. But we're still assessing the impact on our workload.
So can I ask a question on that before you jump?
Yes.
With that, there will be some added costs associated, correct?
Yes.
There will be a lot, based on state mandate after this bill, there'll be a lot of costs imposed onto the county for doing this. Will there also be an increase in days in jail before a bail hearing?
Those are very good questions, and Supervisor Longo, I don't know the answer particularly to the question, except to say that right now I can tell you that a person has a right to a full Humphrey hearing. We talk about it, where you can bring on individual factors about a person, and then it's incumbent on the defense, getting back to your question about the cost, to try to come up and pitch to the judge non-jail alternatives that will keep the community safe.
Well, the reason why I ask is I know that that's on our radar as the board and many of our different departments as to what are the costs associated for these new, based on this case, now state is going to be mandating certain things, and what are those costs, and will we be provided those monies to take care of those costs, or we just have to take it on? You know, there's that whole thing about state mandate but underfunded. So that's one thing that I think we're all going to be working on to figure out how that is.
I totally understand your question, but I think there's a distinction between what happened with Humphrey and the state legislature. Candidly, we've been waiting for the state legislature for that reason. Like, how are you going to pay for this? In Humphrey, it actually says it may be impossible for local governments to comply. And they went on and said, the justices said that it may be that there has been reduction in court services, but a reduction in court services can never take precedent over the fundamental constitutional rights of those that are threatened essentially with pretrial deprivation. And so what the court was saying is, hey, it's not up to us to figure out the money part of it. We have to tell you what's constitutional. So it's of course it's up to you, and I'm kind of in awe when I watch your CFO, Catherine Rodriguez, go over the finances. There's so many things competing for your priorities. To my mind...
She has a big smile on her face when you said that. So that's good.
To my mind, you know, you judge the character of a society based not so much on how you treat the rich, the powerful, the privileged, but more how you treat the poor and the condemned and the incarcerated. And to my mind, one thing you could consider doing is to prioritize the non-jail alternatives. And I suggest that it may be that it reaps for our community rich dividends, as I'm going to go on to explain in a few minutes.
Yeah, okay, let me, because I know, I kind of where you're going with the Humphreys thing, you're talking about this has an effect on your budget, right? Because I know that's where you're going to get to, right?
Well, actually, it happened fast. I got to it. I was saying I could tell you the numbers, $20,520,000 or $520,294. But I am saying that the target budget that that's going to be recommended to you by the CEO is enough for us to continue our mission and our mandate. However, what I'm suggesting is because I was recently appointed and we suffered. Suffered is probably the wrong word, but there were the boomer babies. We had Steve Lipson, a lot of the folks that you know. We had like 12 to 18 separations that I think we have about one or two more persons to hire. In fact, I'm still using an old photograph because we don't have everybody in place yet to take a new photograph. But the point being is that we're going to assess, with the help of the CEO's office, exactly the impact of some of these changes and come back to you and explain what we need.
Perfect. Go ahead.
I'd like to make this point. We've been an hour and a half now, and we're through 1.5 departments. We scheduled an hour for this. At 1:30, we have our APCD hearing, and so I want to suggest a few things. One, this Board of Supervisors has been, regardless of our political persuasion, has been unanimous in support of the public defender concept and making sure we have adequate funding.
Totally agree.
Now, we've always wanted that funding to be spent as efficiently as possible.
Yes, sir.
And the details of that are sort of beyond our scope. We sit there and we go to the CEO and we say, you have these kind of detailed discussions.
Yes.
And you point those details out with the CEO. This is your opportunity for you to highlight key things for us. But the level of detail that we're getting, and it's not the public defender, I want to say the same thing to airports. I mean, the level of detail in there is more than we can digest, quite frankly. We're sitting here trying to listen carefully for an hour and a half. We can't hold on to all those details. And so I really think that we ought to have a situation where the size of your department should determine the length of time you have to present to us. And then force you to say, look, you got to get this done in a half hour. You got to get this done in 25 minutes. Because what I'm afraid of is we're going to have these two departments get done, and then our next department that is still planning on coming here is only going to have 15 minutes because we have APCD coming up. So anyway, if we put on the agenda, I'm really speaking presently, we put on the agenda an hour, then somehow the departments have to be told, okay, of this hour you get this amount of time, but the first one can't take the whole hour. And so I'm going to make this as a, I don't know what I can do legally, Brown Act wise, but I'm going to make this as a motion. And whenever, as soon as I legally can, I'm going to make it as a motion that's what we have to do, because we're just going, we're going too far. And it has nothing to do with your, I'm saying this in yours, but I could have said it right at the end of the airport presentation. I could have said it at the end of all three of them. But since we kind of got off on this, the essence of what we want to hear is, this is your opportunity to sort of say, in my negotiations with the CEO's office, these are the things that I think you ought to be watching for, and you have to find a way to do that. And whether some of these things are appropriate or not appropriate, that's a policy issue, and I think we'd be happy to have that conversation also, but it should be separate from the budget hearing for whatever it's worth. Or pass that on.
I totally agree, and I had planned just on 20 minutes. I didn't anticipate questions as well, but I will just move it along, and I can go very quickly. Police camera evidence is one of the things that we're all kind of wrestling with now all the police basically are recording maybe Simi Valley, and it's hard to kind of give an indication of what that's about, but ultimately when you look at the screen, this is a typical case. It's just a 148. You've got police officers with 3 or 4 or 5 police officers. They all turn in evidence based on the fact that they turned on their cameras, and they have initials, or they basically have initials for which officer's which, and this is about a 2.5-hour download from one individual misdemeanor case. And so suffice it to say, again, the district attorney's office, public defender, these are some of the challenges we face. I've talked about the realignment era giving us more, putting more demands on our office. So I wanted to end with a highlight, if you will. And I know it's Military Appreciation Month, and you've already heard, but I wanted to tell you in terms of the public defender's office, we work in the Veterans Court. Judge Corvarius is shaking hands with Mr. Maru K, sorry, and he was stationed in Afghanistan. The Public Defender's Office, this is a small example, but we lobbied on, advocated on his behalf, and it took about a year. What happened was he came home from Afghanistan, he was depressed, he ended up detached, distant from his wife, he ended up moving in with his family. The police were called. It's a little unusual to do this on a felony case, but he ended up with 4 felony allegations. And what happened in the case is that we were able to, our office, we have a partnership with Pepperdine, a consortium where we use law students to come in and help develop psychosocial histories, and then we advocate to the courts to see if we can get them admitted into the diversion program for veterans. It took a year in Mr. K's case. Ultimately, what happened is the judge accepted him and spent another year in the veterans program, the diversion program in court, and I'm happy to report that the Public Defender's Office was able to assist him in expunging his felony convictions, cleaning up all his fines and fees, and he is now finishing up college. He is an aspiring artist, and he has a job in an art supply store. And that's one story. Last April, we graduated 12 veterans. And I wanted to just highlight this, and then I'll sit down. Our office, through the leadership of the CEO's office, has about 5 sentencing specialists that allow us to develop these non-jail alternatives for a lot of the folks that we represent. And again, on the same idea as bail reform, we are able to use these sentencing specialists to help place folks. And so far this fiscal year, We have done about over 170 transports to programs. About 80 of those folks ended up into programs where they were given a program in lieu of jail time. And we believe that we saved over 3,000 jail days because of the efforts of the Public Defender's Office. And I do believe that this is in conjunction with the District Attorney Probation Department, and I see that as sort of the wave of the future. So unless you have any other questions, that's all I have.
Mr. Chair, I just want to thank you. I think the bill reform is needed, SB 10. It's an equity issue, and we need a balancer, and I think it's important that we do that, because if you have the money, you can take off immediately, but if you don't, you're at the mercy of the rest of the system. So I think it's something that's needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was good. That was good to finish with, because I agree we saw that today, but I'm sure the sheriff would tell you 3,000 days out of his jail is great in those people's lives. So, well, thank you for what you're doing, and in a sense, I know the CEO keeps us apprised of where you're going. So, but I think Supervisor Bennett has been very clear. We're 100% supportive of making this work.
I appreciate that. I apologize if I took too long.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I've also been able to enjoy watching the Veterans Court at the stand down, and just seeing how well it is taken care of, so that these guys don't have to have a record for these little minor issues, and I'm glad that we're able to provide that extra service for our veterans. So thanks for your department's help in that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I guess that ends our day, so we'll, oh, sorry, is there something else? Lori, we'll extend him to 5 minutes, please. Yeah, 5 minutes.
All right, strap yourself in then. Okay.
I love it. Here we go.
Good afternoon, Chair Foy, members of the board, Mr. Powers. I'm Chris Stevens with the Resource Management Agency, and I'm here today to give you a brief summary related to RMA's budget proposal for the coming year.
And I remember one time I said something, and Jeff Pratt spoke so fast that it sounded like Hubert Humphrey was in the room. But being the one who said it, you are a large department, and so I want you to get the important stuff in. I don't want you to go so fast you don't do that.
So you have 10 minutes.
And Jeff Pratt is Hubert Humphrey.
No, that's much appreciated. What I always like to start every presentation with each year with our budget is to remind you of our mission as an agency. And one of the things that we wanted to focus on this year in our presentation was to describe what we do in the context of the county's strategic plan. And what you see there in the bubbles are 4 of the 5 focus areas within the county strategic plan. They actually meld quite nicely with the work that we do in RMA. And so as I move forward and to discuss the activities that we've been working on in the past year and that we'll be working on next year and beyond, we'll be organizing them in that fashion. This is just a picture of our overall preliminary budget. You can see that we are primarily fee offset. The board had a discussion during the budget presentation, maybe I'll comment on at this point. While we are primarily fee offset, you can see there is a significant contribution from the general fund. The target budget that we've been given again this year by the CEO's office allows us to continue to provide the services that we provide. The board and the CEO's office, I think, over the past several years has been providing us those additional revenues to help. I think they're reflective of the number of programs that we provide that cannot be fee offset, and reflective of some of the other activities that we do within RMA. Those include everything from community events and temporary food facilities, where we waive those permit fees, to our LCA program, that's the Land Conservation Act program. And of course, code enforcement activities are typically not fee offset. And this year in particular, as the board knows, we brought to you in December and again in January fee waivers associated with the Thomas fire rebuilds. So the additional revenues that Supervisor Foy mentioned from the general fund this year are going to help offset those fee waivers as well. So The target budget we've been given, as Todd just mentioned in his previous presentation, is adequate to allow us to continue to provide the services and do the work that we need to do. One last thing, getting back to your discussion earlier, Supervisor Parks mentioned the phone calls or inquiries we may get with respect to a project. We do get when permit applications are in process, we'll often get questions from the community about them. Typically, those come in during the public review period when environmental documents or applications are out for review. When we get contact from residents on those are in fact, as noted, are times that is charged to the project. Sometimes outside of those areas, we will get phone calls from neighbors and interested parties that we can address. They want a status of a project that are addressed within a couple of minutes. Those are not typically charged to a project. We try and be very economical with that. We're very sensitive to the costs. We want to be fair and accurate in doing so. So there's a little of both when it comes to applicants and how those fees are assessed.
And as I understand, we have fees associated with different types of permits that are related to the amount of work that the staff will have to apply to that permit. And so that in itself is already kind of handled by the applicant. So,
correct.
But when there are other costs associated with it in relationship to getting questions answered and all those kind of things, some things are pretty complicated. People need to know more information, and I'm sure all the supervisors hear from people who are frustrated that their application's costing more because they're trying to get more information. Mm-hmm. So I think it's in those types of situations, if we can look at a way that we don't have to increase costs for general, information that I think everyone deserves to be able to receive.
Absolutely. Yeah, the bulk of our...
It's not clear to me, how much does that happen? And like you just alluded to the fact that a lot of times you don't charge more. Mm-hmm. Can you identify for us sometime in the future or even now, okay, what percentage of the time or what percentage of the inquiries actually result in increased cost for the applicant versus what percentage of time
I won't try and answer that here before you. But, okay. Very good. And I would add, most of our permits fees are actually fixed fees, and in that instance, the inquiries from neighbors, there is no charge for those. Those are a flat rate fixed fee. It's only in relation to our discretionary permits. And as you noted, there's quite a variety on those. Some are quite controversial, generate a lot of interest and comments, and therefore the permit costs in the end will be more expensive than others that aren't. And that's why those particular permits are not fixed, is that variety within that type of permit.
And then something could become controversial, and just because of that, they end up paying more. And so I don't know if that's how other agencies do this in terms of other planning departments in cities and other counties, but it does engender a lot of frustration to the applicant who has to pay more for, even if a member of the public who he doesn't necessarily needs to provide information. It's your department that's doing it. He gets dinged, So I want to, or she gets dinged. I just want to see if we can look at that in terms of making sure that the public receives information and it doesn't end up costing somebody because we have done what our job is, which is to provide public information on applications.
I'd like to ask specifically, like Amundsen Ranch, huge project, huge public hearings, and so as we're considering this policy, I want to know what would be the impact if we said, okay, all of the public controversy is going to be on the on the taxpayers and not on the applicant versus that. So and that would be a good one for us to go back and go, okay, how much of that was paid for? How much of that was because people asked a ton. Oh, yeah. There was a ton of inquiry and all of that. Mm-hmm. Who should be paying that? I think is that would be a good case study for a good breakdown.
Well, and it's also fairness for the applicant, and it's fairness for the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of costs associated just because you like a project or you don't like a project, and things get slowed down and costs are astronomical. So I think that is something that we've been wanting to discuss and talk about and understand so that taxpayers aren't carrying all burden, but are, that the funds are spent in the right way and that the charges are correct.
And you may have hearings, and there's the expense of hearings. I'm obviously not talking about that. I'm just talking about someone's got an application. You're a neighbor. You don't understand it. You get more information, and that guy gets dinged. So it's just those simple things that to me that are. And we have the wonderful Acela program, so we can certainly send people to that to take a look at it. But it's just that concept of dinging the applicant when a third party asks a question. That particularly is something we hear about. But even when the applicant isn't clear and has to get more information, they get dinged. So I guess maybe one of the lessons learned is, hire a consultant to do it so you don't have the questions. But is that really a fair thing to go about?
Well, I know we're using up all your time, Chris, so we're talking about being efficient. I just want to caution this conversation that I'm hearing is that you heard, Supervisor Long say, hey, if it's controversial, it's not fair for the applicant. At the same time, it's a slippery slope. Supervisor Park saying, just one person asking a little question, should the applicant get dinged? And I think I'm hearing you say you try not to do that, but it's a slippery slope. Yeah. Where do you draw the line? The applicant's going to say, okay, look, if I'm not getting dinged for people asking questions, why should I get dinged because 50 people come to a hearing instead of 5 people come to a hearing? On the other hand, I sit there and say, should people be allowed to propose controversial things, and it always end up being the public. So where you draw the line, that's a slippery slope, and I just want to suggest that the board is unclear as to where that line is. Right?
And it doesn't have to be a slippery slope if we have criteria. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking at all about 50 people at a hearing. I'm talking about outside of the hearing. People contacting the department wanting information.
Yeah.
I just left and you're still on the same slide.
Oh,
They've been just dragging this on. Come on, Chris, let's go.
I'll just respond with saying there is no easy answer to this question. We look at it, we address it as best we can. I think one of your points is a good one for us to probably go back again, and we tend to do this. It's been a while on this issue, and talk with other counties and cities. Maybe there is a methodology out there.
That would be great.
So we can do that, certainly. So this is just another snapshot of the budget, which is a little more detail on our revenues and gives you a little more information on when we talk about permits, registrations, and fees, what we're talking about there. That it is not limited to the land use and permitting fees that we were just talking about. We do a lot of work both in every one of our divisions where we charge fees for those services. On the expense side, this is a picture which I think highlights a couple of things. Most importantly, that we are an entity not of infrastructure, and supplies. We are really made up of people. And the lion's share of our budget is to cover those staff expenses. We've highlighted for you on the side. Normally, we provide that information to you by division, tell you how many staff people we have within a division. This time, we kind of highlighted it for you in terms of what they do. And those top two categories, the inspections and the enforcement, those are in essence people that are out in the field every day doing their work, doing their inspections, conversing with the community and working out there. We're not an agency of primarily folks that are in the office at desks. We do that. There's a lot of work that we need to do in the office, but we are primarily made up of staff people that are out in the field trying to do inspections and provide services to the community. So getting to some of the work that we're doing over the course of the year. I think many of these the board is familiar with. When it comes to kind of the good government category, what I've included here are really primarily kind of our process improvement and customer service work that we do. A couple things that I would highlight: the credit card payment program. That's something that we started a few years ago. That it took us a while to get that going. Happy to say that's just expanding regularly.
Chris, does that cost additional dollars, like when you pay your property taxes, to use a credit card?
Yes, it is through the same company that the treasurer tax collector uses. Yeah,
there's a fee for that.
There's a fee for that. That's correct. Not to the county. The fee is collected by the company, by the vendor.
But sometimes that'll expedite things anyway.
Absolutely. It's very popular. The fee that you're referring to has not been a hindrance to that.
That's right.
The number of payments made with credit cards has just increased every single year. And this year, we've now expanded it so that our weights and measures program, as well as our environmental health division, are now accepting credit card payments. So we're slowly but surely working our way up to being able to take payment through credit cards for all of our services. The other thing I want to mention here is we have a public counter queuing program. That's something that we're working on. We can have quite a few customers at our counter at any one time. Some of you may have noticed that when you're in the building. What we've been looking at for a number of years, and we're finally ready to take the leap, is what they call a queuing program, so that when customers come in, they will not be signing their name on a clipboard and waiting for their name to be called. They can log in to a kiosk. They will go into an electronic ordering system. We'll have a screen there. They'll see where they are in line. And most notably, they will also be able to put in their cell phone number. They could go down to the cafeteria, and then we can ring them when it's their time to come up to the counter.
Do we have a large flow of people just standing around waiting to get to the counter?
I wish I could say it was predictable, but the short answer is yes, we do. We have periods of time, and unfortunately, it's not something where we can say it's always Friday afternoon or it's always Wednesday or what have you. It seems to be a fairly random occurrence, but we do have moments where we'll have a lot of people that are waiting. This system would also allow them to register from their office before they even came down to our building. If they wanted, it could go on there and see what the queue is, and if it was long enough, they could get in the queue before they even drive down.
And Chris, a lot of doctors are doing that now.
Absolutely.
Instead of waiting there at the office.
It's not unlike restaurants where you get your, they give you your little, pager, right? It's something along those lines. We think it'll be a real assistance to our customers. So we're pretty excited about that. The environment and land use, that's kind of our bread and butter, right? That much of the items that are within the strategic plan within this focus area fall to resource management. A couple that I would want to highlight for you here. One is the Local Agency Management Program, the LAMP. And it's been some time since we've talked to the board about this, but that is a program that our Environmental Health Division has been working on. It's in response to Regional Water Quality Control Board changes on policy and how we regulate on-site wastewater treatment systems or septic systems. We prepared a draft LAMP and submitted that to the regional board, and happy to say we just heard this week that they have approved our draft. We will be bringing that back to the board for your review, comment, any revisions or not, and then we will move forward with that and entering into an MOU with the regional board so that we can retain our authority here at the county for the permitting of septic systems and not have to send our residents and customers down to Los Angeles for that permitting. So it'll be a huge benefit to our residents if we can maintain that program. One thing I would mention on that, we've been approached, the regional board was encouraging the county to take this on for the cities as well. Something that that I think we brought to the board's attention a few years ago. We have now actually been approached by 3 of the cities asking us, so we're starting a discussion with them. That will be part of our presentation back to the board as to how that might work and whether or not you would want us to proceed to do that. the three cities are Camarillo, Moore Park, and Ojai, have approached us and interested in having us do that. We have the staffing, the expertise here that they don't necessarily have at cities, and it may make sense, but we'll be presenting that information to you next year. The other last thing I might mention on here, we have on the bottom there, you see the reference to the Best Rock mine reclamation. When we permit mining operations in here, the county, we get a surety bond from them to ensure that we can reclaim the mine should the owner or operator fail to do so. For the first time in the county's history, we have a situation where a mine operator failed to do so. And so we have taken their surety and are now working with the Public Works Agency to hire contractors to reclaim that mine site and take care of that. So that's work that will be going this year. Ultimately, you may see the contract brought before the board once we have a contractor identified. But I believe it's something in the neighborhood of $800,000 or $900,000 that we had in the surety to get the job done, which fortunately appears to be enough to get the job done. So very happy about that, and this will be a first for the county.
That's
great. We've never done that.
Just a question, on your 12 Land Conservation Act contracts, do we normally, that's usually the number we have, or do we normally have more?
That's probably about right. I say in any given year that we would have 12 contracts before the board. They usually come to you in November, December.
Thank you.
We have to get them recorded before the end of the calendar year in order for the property owner to reap the benefits in the following calendar year.
You know, Chris, some people say, are you busy? And you look at all your different permits that you guys issue, and I calculated that's about 5,000 permits a year. And you take your 260 days you work, that's about 20 permits a day are walking out of your offices in different parts. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, we're pretty busy.
Could I ask a question? On the previous slide, you have 150 Public Record Act requests. And I'm wondering...
I have to figure out how to go backwards, I'm sorry. See if I can do that. Oh, going the wrong way. What have I done now? This new clicker is driving me crazy.
Everybody's consistent. They have no idea how to work it. It's very good.
Lori's taking over for you.
Keep going. One more. There you go.
That seems very unusual to me. Why do you have 150 Public Record Act requests?
That is just the nature of the work that we do. We talk with many other counties. They have quite a few more, actually. Monterey County Planning Department actually has, last time we checked, I think it was between 1 and 2 full-time staffers dealing just with Public Record Act requests. The work that we do, I think it gets back to your earlier comment about controversy and interest in the projects and permits that we issue. So we receive a lot of Public Record Act requests.
I would be interested in seeing the list. I have seen other entities go ahead and put their Public Record Act responses online, and then people can go right to them, so you never get the same thing, someone else asking what you just did to somebody before. And so that might be something that you might want to do. I think it is a really transparent way of going about handling them. But if you have a list of them, I'm just really curious as to what it is that people are doing Public Record Act requests for, and I'd be interested in seeing the list.
Yeah, and often it is, to be honest, related to litigation that does not involve the county. So it may be 2 property owners and have at issue over a sale, and they're actually coming to the county to gather the information that they're going to use in their civil matter. That's quite often the case. It's not necessarily related to the processing of a permit, per se. All right, we'll try this thing again here. Community well-being. This is also, I think part and parcel of what we do here in RMA. A couple things that we do that I'll highlight for you that you may not be familiar with is the foodborne illness investigations. As you can see, we had 270 of those last year. We do those in association with the Public Health Department. In essence, our Environmental Health Division staff are the kind of the field investigation team for Dr. Levin. And so when we have indications or it starts really from 2 places. One might be complaints that are submitted to environmental health related to a restaurant or other food facility. The other is that in the public health clinics, if they see kind of a cluster or a pattern of certain illnesses that they think might be foodborne related, they then bring that forward to us. And we get a number of these, as you can see, 270 last year, and we go out and do that investigation to see whether or not there is, in fact, a problem at a licensed food facility that we need to address. So that's kind of one of those, I think, activities that we do that not too many people are familiar with. But we have developed a really good relationship with the public health department, and I think we've done a very good job in that respect. One thing that I neglected to include on any of the slides, I'll cover it here very quickly, is the census that's coming up in 2020. I think we've reported to the board there's something they call the LUCA program. Don't ask me what that stands for, but that is what we're currently working on, the planning division. In essence, that's a program we work with the census to ensure that their address database is up to date and accurate, because that's what they use to go out in the field and try and collect the census information. That's ongoing and hopefully will be finished up this fall for them. And then what we'll be taking a look at now and ultimately we'll get back to the board is the next phase of what we may do in terms of the census itself and getting out public information and trying to make sure that everyone in the county of Ventura is counted and counted properly. It's important for the county for a whole host of reasons. We've done that for every of the previous census. We'll do it again, and we'll be bringing the board kind of a proposal probably at somewhere toward maybe the end of this calendar year to start next spring. Next spring will be 1 year prior to the census, which takes place in April 2020. And usually you start about a year prior with all those efforts, working with the community to get people informed about what's going on to make sure we get a good count. Public safety, again, I think a focus area that maybe people don't think about resource management agencies being involved in, but we do a lot of work that I think falls into that category. Just highlight for you that we did oversee the complete cleanup of the Santa Clara wastewater facility. That was obviously a big event for the community and something that the board was involved in. It took quite a while to get through that, but after that permit was suspended, there was still a lot of material on that site, and our Environmental Health Division oversaw the removal of that. It just was a lengthy process and just finished up at the end of last calendar year. So very happy to report that that's done. Another thing that would highlight here is swimming pools. All of the public swimming pools in the county are permitted and inspected by our Environmental Health Division. There's 1,700 of them in the county, roughly. Last year, we issued about 400 permits for those, and that is not just taking a look at water chemistry, in terms of the health safety. There's issues related to the pump system and making sure that particularly children are protected from not getting caught on pump inlets on those swimming pools, and fencing requirements to make sure that these are properly fenced so that children don't wander into pools. So I think a very important safety program.
I'd just like to say I've been on one of those ride-alongs, and it's pretty impressive what they do to go through and ensure public safety, even in the apartment pools and so forth. So thank you.
Very good and important work. Want to touch just quickly on some of the Thomas Fire. I think these are things that the board's very familiar with. I don't want to take too much time on them. Just wanted to something about the initial damage assessments. That's something that we're required to do by state law. Our Building and Safety Division is the lead on that work. And long before the fire was even out, we had organized 13 teams that went out and did the damage assessments, led by our Building and Safety Division, but also involved all of our other field people, code enforcement, environmental health, to get out there and get that done. We have to report all of that information to Sheriff's OES, Cal OES, FEMA. Very important information for us to get for future reimbursements and what have you. So they did a very good job in getting that done. One other program I'll highlight that most people don't know about it, we call it the VIN numbers. That's the vehicle identification numbers. A lot of vehicles were destroyed in the fire, about 300 of them. We were required to go out and do an assessment as to whether or not we could get the VIN number off of those vehicles. It's required by Department of Motor Vehicles before a vehicle can be declared abandoned and be removed. As you can see by the photograph, that's a vehicle right there. We didn't get a lot of VIN numbers. Most of them were completely destroyed, but you have to go through the process to visually inspect it, make the note of it, and get the paperwork done so that Cal Recycle can take the vehicle away when it removes the rest of the debris.
I just want to say that you guys shine in lots of areas, but in this area, my gosh, you earned so much goodwill, your department did, for county government, county employees, et cetera, and not just your department, but you guys really knocked it out of the park on everything about this. And so if you'll pass that on, and I'm going to use this opportunity to just publicly announce that on June 19th, early in the board meeting at 9:15, we're going to try to coordinate. We're working with the CEO's office, my office is, the whole thank you program. Supervisor Long and myself are trying to do that as we have places. So anybody that knows people that we should be thanking, organizations, et cetera, that we should be thanking, this is an open invitation, let us know. And so, Chris, if you'll think about your department in terms of how we do that. It's very difficult to come up with everybody, but I do have a video that's been made that has about 200 businesses all listed that contributed from the city of Ventura. I have a video about the fire department, so there'll be 2 videos that will play, both of them very short, that'll do that. But I want to publicly invite you to think about anybody else and any help you can give us to make sure we properly thank. Mostly it's going to be organizations and all that. We won't be able to have every individual in here. Thank you.
Thank you. I couldn't fit all the Thomas Fire issues on one slide, so there's a few other that, and I just wanted to mention the RFP that we're working on right now. We've been working with the GSA procurement on that, and then coordinating also with risk management and the auditor controller's office. Hope to issue that RFP here by the end of the week, and that will be to hire someone, an administrator, to oversee the collection of the insurance proceeds that go toward the debris removal. According to Cal OES, if we contract with them, the amount of that contract is reimbursable through FEMA, and that's a much easier way to go than to try and have staff do it. So we hope to get that out by the end of the week. Just so you know, we also sent a copy of it to the city of Ventura because they expressed an interest in perhaps joining us, and they have also approved the RFP. So when it comes back, at that point, we may be sharing the cost with the city of Ventura. I think it only makes sense that we do this together and coordinated. So you'll be seeing that hopefully soon. And the expedited permitting process, we've been working on that. Mike's mentioned that a number of times, and we hope to report back to you on June 5th with kind of the whole results of the Kaizen that we're doing and where we're headed on that project. So I won't take any time right now. And then this, lastly, just kind of want to circle back now, and it kind of gets back to that first discussion about fees and general fund. We're not recommending any significant changes in our fee program this year. One thing that the vector assessment program, that is done through an engineer's report, which will be separate than the fee schedule that the board will be seeing, I think, next week. And we'll be going through that process. Our estimate right now is 3%. That's actually our most significant fee increase. But I wanted to mention real quick the restructuring of the building and safety fee schedule. Because when you see that, you may see a lot of red, and you may think that there's maybe there's some fee increases or what have you in there. There aren't any fee increases. One of the things that our building official did is he did a voice of the customer sessions and brought in a lot of our customers to find out, you know, what was going well, what wasn't going well, and a number of them brought up difficulties with our fee schedule and how difficult it was to work with. That was actually taking them a lot of time to address, and on our end was actually taking more time to process. And so Ruben and his staff worked and have kind of reformatted and restructured the fee schedule to address that concern. I know our customers are going to be very happy. Staff's happy about it. There'll be no fee increases. It's just a different structure on it. So rather than charge fees for each, for example, electrical outlet, you do it by square footage of the structure. And so you can just more easily do it. And our inspectors don't have to worry about counting every outlet while they're out there. It's going to make everything more efficient, and there'll be zero cost impact. So pretty happy about that. That's the kind of fee schedule review we try to do on a regular basis.
Well, and then also the fees, we have that temporary fees for the Thomas Fire that we're not charging, correct?
That's correct.
That's along with this. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, the fee waivers was done on a separate resolution, so when you see your fee schedule, it'll have the regular fees that'll be overlaid by that resolution that you adopted that waives those fees.
Thank you.
That's it for me. I'll be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you, appreciate you going through all that. A lot of good things are happening. Anybody have any more comments? I know you've been making
You
this
did it
go.
in 10 minutes. Good job.
Yeah, Lori controls that clock
Very
well, I
good.
love it.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Move to receive and file.
All right.
Second.
Appreciate all the work of the presentations.
Yeah, a lot of work goes into, I know that's quick up here and we see it, or maybe we think it's not quick, but thank you, Kim, and everybody Catherine, for everybody that's done their work, so appreciate all that. All right, I think that's everything for today. We're good?
APCD.
Yeah. All right, sounds great. Thank you, we'll adjourn.
Yes, we have our APCD. So don't run away.